Boo!
Wondrous applause.
Boo!
Oh, God.
Burns.
Well, as you can probably tell, I think we're live.
Oh, we're on film. Oh my God, no!
Let's do a quick sound check for those of you who are in the chat room. If you can hear this, just let us know that you're watching. I think Josh can hear us just fine. And
It's not a stream
give
without an echo.
I know.
No, that's absolutely obligatory.
Okay, I got one who can hear. I got the guy sitting to my right who's saying he can hear on somebody else's device. I got. Sounds like everybody can hear us. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody.
And someone has a can there.
It's great to have you all with us. I am your host, Roadway Wiz, in case you didn't already know my name. We have the privilege of being joined tonight by several members of the AARoads.com forum, and together we're going to navigate the three-digit interstate highway system of northern and western New York State.
Boo.
Boo.
So at
Your
this
definition
point,
of upstate is flawed.
I don't think so, but anyway.
It's
We can get into that off the air if you want. But
or on the air later as we get punchy.
on the air during the voting.
Okay.
Maybe that's
I
when we
sense
get
a bonus
into it.
feature.
Yeah. Deleted scene. I think we should take a minute here before we get going and introduce our panel. So why don't we start at this end of the room and work our way around. If you want to give your name and your handle on AA Roads, or if you just want to give your name, whatever you want to do.
Hey, I'm Josh. I'm a SEAL 94 on AA Roads. I'm from Albany.
I'm Steve. I'm 36. I enjoy long walks on the beach and quiet moonlit nights. My favorite food is you.
And he's Alps on the forum,
He's
by the
out for
way.
the forum, by the way.
That's right, ladies.
I'm Bill. I'm signal man on the forum, and I'm not so sure how much I'm going to contribute tonight, but I'm here for the camaraderie. Yeah.
Weeboo, eboo! And Doug. I'm Doug, from Gribble Nation. I'm one of the bloggers there. I also am Doug Tone on the AA Roads Forum, and I've lived in upstate New York for probably way too long. I live in the Albany, New York area.
Everyone thinks he lives upstate. That's a consensus definition.
Yes.
Unless you check
There's someone from Plattsburgh.
or Buffalo.
Buffalo's fake.
I am Roadway Wiz. You know my name. Look up the number. And I
His name's
am
Dan.
Roadway
I'll give you
Wiz
his number out later.
95 on the forum. Check me out.
I'm Duke 87 on the AA Roads Forum. I'm the interloper here from New York City.
I don't want your salsa.
But you want my pizza.
And
Facts.
yeah, and the bagels too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to go on quite a bit of a tour here of the major metropolitan areas of northern and western New York. And a lot of you have probably been familiar with my videos of these interstates over the years. They were some of the first highways that I even filmed almost a decade ago. And I did some of my first trial videos on some of these highways. So it was really neat back in October when I got to come back to these roads on video for the first time since, 9 years ago when the channel was first founded. And so I've gotten to know these roads quite a bit over the years, and I know you guys have as well. And so I feel like at this juncture it's a good idea to go back, give you guys more of an overview of what the systems of each of these metropolitan areas look like, what could have been, what was constructed. And I hope that by the end of this 2-hour or so introduction into these highways, that you'll feel that not only do you have a better understanding of the system as a whole, but also you'll have a better understanding of each individual highway. You might be able to look at this as you're getting to know the 15 members of this large extended family that are all related
16.
to each other, and each have their own characteristics and personalities. So
You're
I hope
missing
that
it.
by the end of this, you'll have gotten something out of this. Yes,
Missing a 281 shield.
I am not missing a 281 shield.
We'll talk about 281
We'll talk
briefly
about
later.
21 later.
Dude, you're already in Syracuse. We haven't even started yet. All right. So, that's it. But first, some announcements. The year in review video that I'm doing is currently in production. You can expect that to drop on January 1st. It'll basically be a recap of everything that I did this past year. It'll be a nice way to wrap things up, give you guys a quick summary of everything that I did, and also give you sort of a look ahead into what is going to be going on in the first half of 2020. If you enjoyed our virtual tour of the Garden State Parkway earlier this fall, you probably will enjoy the next one that I'm working on, which is going to be Ocean Drive in New Jersey. I would like to do that one sometime in either late January or early February, and I'm still working on coming up with a date for that, so stay tuned. The next online road meets of 2020 are going to be, they are currently in progress as far as development. The next one I would like to do would probably be sometime in March. So again, stay tuned for an exact date and itinerary for that. The big ticket item in the first part of the year is obviously the winter 2020 trip. Those are the dates, and it's coming up fast. It's less than 2 months from now. And as far as the destination, I'm not telling you yet. Yeah, well, it's company policy. What can I say? YouTube uploads, we are currently working through the Indiana Toll Road. That started late last week, and it will be wrapped up by this coming Monday, the 16th. So you'll have all of the Indiana Toll Road on video by that point. We will continue through the rest of Northwest Indiana expressways the rest of December. In time for Christmas Eve, we will have our first video of Chicago. And that will... Hey, you want to make a little more noise over there? What are you doing?
No, I tried to open everything because it's quiet.
We will have our first Chicago video dropping on Christmas Eve, and that metropolitan area will keep us busy well into probably through the end of February. So you have that to look forward to. During the course of tonight's presentation, other than the material that is my own that I've supplied for this, I've also pulled information off of these websites below, and you can check them out on your own.
Mine was a terrible choice.
They are great. They are great.
Agreed.
They are great sources, except for Steve's.
Thank you.
So Steve and Doug are actually with us, as we mentioned at the start.
And Al was also with us.
At Al, yeah, right. Chris's site is very Albany-centric, and Valerie does another website that is statewide, and she does a great job there. So,
How about Nathan Perry's Empire State Roads?
Is that site still
I
online?
don't think it's online. But the Wayback Machine.
Yes, it has it.
If you search for
Wayback Machine has it.
Nathan Perry's site on Wayback Machine, you'll find some very informative stuff there as well. He was the first one to really cover Upstate in depth.
And you can find interchange of the week imagery from before anyone online normally really had that.
Yeah.
Right.
huh.
There's some cool stuff.
And then you have like sites like Mark Sinsabaugh's New York Routes, which is basically like a route log and things like that.
Okay. All right, so we have, real quick, we have 3 slightly off-topic things I want to get to on slides, because given the fact that this is probably going to be the last time we're all together in this room for the year, I have 3 quick things I got to get to with you guys. So I'm going to put up a slide, and I'm going to get you guys' reaction to it, similar to what we did with the Parkway.
I'm already angry.
All right, I don't think you're going to be angry with this first one, Steve.
I'm angry.
Yeah, you think so?
Always.
The cake is angry.
Yeah!
I'm angry that... No, you're right.
We all know who
I'm
this
angry that
is.
this person is not a belly itcher.
I'm angry that he's going to have to shave his beard.
He is going to have to shave
Yes.
his beard. That is correct.
The
Garrett,
drama's better.
I'm angry that you said that. Not from a fantasy stats point of view.
so Garrett Cole signing that ridiculous contract with the Yankees, and we have a room full of Yankee fans in here except Doug. So
That's not true. I don't like the Yankees.
Oh,
Do you like sports?
Yes.
No.
yeah. But basically, what we need to hope here is that he's great for 5 years and then opts out. Because if he sucks, he's not going to opt out, and we're going to be stuck with him for 9 years.
What if he's great for 9 years? Is that okay?
He won't be great for 9 years. He'll be great for 5 and then sign a new
Some
contract.
guys are great for 9 years.
Oh, he might be. But he'll want a second contract after year 5,
Maybe.
you know?
Like, actually being great for that long is very exceptional.
If he stays the full 9 years, he'll be 39 at the end of that contract,
Yeah.
which is
Then he'll
insane.
go into the Hall of Fame as a Yankee.
I'm not saying it won't happen, but
Now, for 2 hours of sports chat.
here's your host, Mike Francesa. Okay. Next.
X.
Who is
Fanfiction.
who is excited for this movie?
X.
X.
Ix.
X.
I'm angry for the Disneyfication of the Star Wars universe.
Well, it's
I concur
already
with
in
that.
it's already in full swing, and I'm very worried about what they're going to do with this movie. But
Yeah,
Baby Yoda wins. So,
Man.
Do not get me started on Baby Yoda. I will derail this entire conversation.
Baby Yoda. Tell us about Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda is the Gizmo from Gremlins.
No, so here's the thing. Back before Lucasfilm was sold to Disney, there was in fact a rule in place that no expanded universe author was allowed to expand on Yoda or his species. George Lucas wished for there to be mystique remaining around that. So the fact that Disney has now gone and done what there used to be an explicit rule created by the creator of Star Wars against is, to me, just another example of how Disney is continuing to ruin Star Wars.
I thought the creator of Star Wars was Disney.
No.
They took it over. They bought the franchise.
No, that's not how that works.
yeah,
Well, I will say this
I
much
missed
so,
that
and
since
I will
the
probably
beginning.
have a legion of middle-aged women and their kids with burning pitchforks at my door. But Disney is the evil empire.
all right. Yeah, at least
It makes me single.
At least you didn't say the Yankees were. So, you know. All right, so that was 2.
No, that's 9.
I got one more. That was Ix, not 9. I will not see you guys again probably until the NFL playoffs has started. So here is the latest breakdown. You can find your favorite team on here, except if you're Steve.
My favorite teams play on New Year's Day.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah, you
My
see-
favorite team's fans throw people through tables.
That's right. See, the Bills are very prominent on the left side of the bracket here, and
Although
I
you're
expect
worried
that
about
to
Tennessee
continue.
knocking them off.
See
Because Tennessee is 10 to believe in.
Right.
Because Tennessee.
The big thing to draw attention here, too, is the lower right corner.
Who cares about Los
A
Angeles?
small gray spot.
Who cares about Chicago?
The fact that... No, the lower right corner of where the big logos are. The fact that we're looking at a under 500 team.
Oh, and which explains why the Eagles are in the still alive category. Yeah, yeah. You might have a 10 or 11 win team not make the playoffs.
I'm still checking in to see if they're them boys still.
You want to start that one over?
No, I screwed up.
But in the AFC, let's call attention to a couple things here. One, I think Buffalo is in solid. They'll get to 10 at some
Easily.
because they still have the Jets at home. They'll probably win that game.
Yeah, and then they have Pittsburgh and New England on
Which
the
is a
road.
big game, the Sunday night game.
That's a
Buffalo,
huge game.
Pittsburgh. I think the Bills will get to 10, no problem. So they're in. What it's really going to come down to, as I look at it, is
Houston or Tennessee?
I think only one of these two is going to make it. And the winner of Sunday's game could very well be the team that gets in. These two teams play each other twice in the final 3 games of the season. So
you're
first
now on
place is on the line, and very much their season is on the line tomorrow in Nashville.
Are you now on the bandwagon of 7 teams in the playoffs?
It has nothing to do with this, I assure you. But, I mean, we basically would have a playoff spot locked up at this point if that were the case. But as it is, those are the rules we have to play with, and so we have to play our way in. But I do like our chances tomorrow. I think we will do the job. Now watch, you guys on Sunday at 4:30 when the Titans lose will bombard the comment section and be like, hey, you suck! But, you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, but as Tim Russert said, go Bills.
Hey, that's right. So,
They will always be the Houston Oilers.
the Houston Oilers of Nashville.
Yeah, speaking of Buffalo,
So I suppose it makes the most sense here to run through each of these cities in order from west to east across the state, just to really give you guys an overview of each metropolitan area, and we'll discuss the auxiliary interstates in more detail. So the first city that we come to, obviously, is Buffalo, right across the Niagara River from Canada.
Mashing tables.
And that's right. Yeah, the table mashing area is down in this area, I think. So if you look at the map on the left, we have more or less the system that was built out is the lines in black. The red dotted lines are highways that were actively planned but were never constructed. Well, actually, that's not true.
219, Southern Expressway.
Yeah. So this
also
map
got
must have been.
400s on there too. The Aurora
Yeah,
Expressway.
so
4 of them were built in some capacity.
yeah, 400's here, 219's here,
Uh,
and then you have
Grand
Yeah,
Island.
And of course,
Right
we
here.
5
Grand Island
990
Parkway
too.
was not built.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah,
the way that this
990 as
suggests.
well, up to,
Right, yeah.
well, at least in part, so.
And then the map on the right here is a more official version of the map on the left, where you have expressways built out in black, and then the wish list is more of this outlined line that you see here. And the dotted lines are roads that were currently planned or were under construction at the time.
Do we have a date on this?
I
The,
do not.
the map in black and white is from, I want to say, around 1971.
Okay.
Right.
And the map on the left I pulled off of the NBC affiliate in Buffalo. So I think they did a story within the last few years about the
Yes.
outer loop. And so
Yes.
that's where I pulled this from.
Yep, they did.
And here's the system as we see it today.
Sort of.
Yes.
More or less, right?
Look at Niagara Falls.
Look at Niagara Falls. Something's.
Well, the blue line is there as it
No,
should
it's
be.
not anymore. Not anymore.
It's still a trail.
I thought you were calling attention to the lack of Niagara Scenic Parkway on here.
That's part of it, yes.
Yeah. Well, I understand that it's a Super 2 north of downtown Niagara Falls. But,
And it's not there anymore.
It's now a nothing.
It's now a.
well,
It's completely torn down.
yeah. So, well, anyway, let's pretend that this is completely accurate for a second.
It's not a 3DI, so we don't need to worry about it.
Yeah,
This still shows 198 as an expressway.
it does. Yeah,
That is no longer accurate.
it is still titled
It
as
never
an-
was
Yeah.
a full
It
freeway.
was supposed
Yeah.
to.
So
it
you-
started off as a parkway and was
Yeah.
grandfathered in.
Yeah, so you got 190 that runs through downtown Buffalo and then across Grand Island and into Niagara Falls, and it ends
190 is
at
still
the
shown with a toll on it.
Canadian border.
A 90 is the
It
only
is.
three interstate to end at the Canadian border.
The only 3DI, yes, that is correct, to end at the Canadian border. And then we have 290 that runs across the northern suburbs like this. And then we have 990, which kind of peters out after a few miles after it runs northeasterly in the direction of Lockport. So that's the summary for you. Now, let's get into these in more detail.
Yay.
So 190 is part of the thruway system from its southern terminus on up through the North Grand Island Bridge where it touches down in Niagara Falls. That is a branch of the New York State Thruway. Most useful as a connection from the mainline thruway to downtown Buffalo. It's also part of the rather busy Buffalo-Niagara Falls corridor, which of course leads to the bridge to Canada, Southern Ontario, and all the...
Lewiston-Queenston Bridge.
That is correct. And the major metropolitan areas in southeastern Ontario.
Only speed bumps on Interstate.
The tolls, there used to be toll booths in the city of Buffalo. The northbound side was more or less right after the interstate started.
Yeah,
And then the southbound one was across from the Black Rock Canal.
Yeah, the toll booths from they were removed in 2006. If you remember, Carl Palladino, who ran for governor of New York in 2010, he actually led a lobbying effort to have the Scajaquada, which was,
Can you pronounce that again for me, please?
Scajaquada?
Skadakwada.
Skadakwada.
I like calling it the Scadge.
Okay.
It sounds dirty.
Yeah, and I guess the other was the Ogden Street toll booth.
Yes, that was the northbound side one.
Yeah, in 2006.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, both toll booths were bidirectional. That changed very early on.
Oh, they were both bi-directional at one
Yes.
point?
Deacon
Okay.
will not like to hear you talk about bidirectional toll booths. He only likes heterodirectional.
It is worth noting, right? So the official names for these toll booths were the City Line Toll Barrier and the Black Rock Toll Barrier, and they were removed recently enough that they did have Easy Pass. And so for those of you who've paid attention to the fact that when you look at your Easy Pass statement, you'll see these 2 or 3 letter codes on them. Yes, the codes for those were CL and BR.
Yep.
And of course, one of the signature parts of 190 is where it enters and leaves Grand Island. So we're looking at the South Grand Island Bridge. The original bridge was built around 1935 or so, and then the twin span was built around 1960.
But which is which?
One of the ways you can tell is by looking at the fender system.
That's
So
original.
you see how this is more of a stone and masonry approach, and this is a steel-lined approach. So the masonry one came first in the 30s, and then they built a more modern buffering system with the second bridge.
That was before I-90. That was New York Route 324.
Yes.
And it still is to this
Yes,
day,
it
isn't
is.
it? Because 324 traverses Grand Island.
Yes. It
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it has its northern terminus at 190, doesn't it?
No, it actually ends at a 384.
So it crosses back.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So it actually ends in Niagara Falls at exit at 21.
Okay. So other than the fender system, it's very hard to distinguish between the two because it appears that the two bridges were built with the same set of blueprints. But anyway. All right. So if 190 has a lot to talk about, 290 probably doesn't have a lot to talk about. It is east-west freeway across the north suburbs of Buffalo. Buffalo, in local lingo, they use the word north towns to describe the northern suburbs, and they use the word south towns to describe the southern suburbs. So when I say north towns, south towns, you know what I'm talking about.
East towns?
I don't think there is.
No.
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 North towns like Kenmore, Lockport, and through traffic.
No.
Yes, the
Yes.
census-designated
Yes,
place of through traffic.
It's somewhere near Fredonia
I thought that was in New Jersey.
Yeah, so it is.
or Ohio.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
Out of here, the element 290 itself does not have an official control city. Yes, it is signed from I-90 as Niagara Falls and from I-90 as Rochester. Every sign along 290 itself says through traffic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So DOT's got something weird going on with that highway because control cities are inconsistent.
Yep.
Like the thruway tries to do them a favor and give them control
Thruway
cities
is,
they can use, but
Yeah, the Thruway is Tonawanda and Rochester.
that's right. Yeah. off of 190. But yeah, DOT's like, nah, we don't want to use those. We'd rather use through traffic.
This interstate also has
They're
a square
consistently
shield.
inconsistent.
Yes, there is
Yes, it does. I think it's still out there somewhere,
Yes, it is.
isn't it? Yeah. So, 190 and 290 are the more mainstream highways that we're largely familiar with, and then there's 990, which started life as a much larger highway than what it eventually became. The city of Lockport was meant to be directly connected to the Buffalo area by way of an expressway, which only was partially built, and what was built became I-990.
And
It's
we,
ba-
yeah.
It's at this point, it's basically a glorified entrance to SUNY Buffalo.
Yes,
But-
sir, it is. Woo!
And there was actually a plan at one time where what became 990 was eventually going to go from Lockport out to Rochester along 31 and 531, which
That's part of it.
Which is
Yeah.
another stub freeway in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I often wonder if they seriously gave thought to that the Thruway Authority would pitch a fit over that.
well, it
You'd be building a free highway along a tolled corridor already, but
yeah, that basically that was off the drawing books by the 70s.
Yeah.
That died very.
And it was originally the expressway up to Lockport was originally supposed to be about 12 miles long at a cost of $22 million.
They should build it if that's today's money.
That's not
That's
today's
not
money.
today's money.
no, it is not.
But they started really getting built, piece by piece starting in 1980, and then basically it kind of petered out, basically in 1990 where it ends now on 263, Millersport
Yeah.
Highway.
So what you're looking at in these renderings here, for a long time the highway came to a terminus. If my clicker will work. Let me get it.
North French Road.
Yes,
Yeah. No, because I got it on highlight. That's the
for a
problem.
long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So it came to an end here at French Road. And so what you're looking at here is probably different renderings of what they would do with the northern terminus, because the ending at French Road was always meant to be temporary. So you can see how there are 4 different options for what they would do. And the option that they eventually settled on is right in here. Okay, so this highlighted right away is the one that was built. Now, it's interesting how you can look at different schemes for doing this. Like this, I think down here was what was already built. You had 990 come to an intersection with French Road.
Yeah.
So there was the talk about building a direct connection to Millersport here, but this was passed up in favor of the actual corridor that they selected. I think it would have been interesting to see how they would have done the flyovers that you see in these 2 proposals.
That would have been a clusterfuck.
This-
Because it's a clusterfuck even
Yeah, that's a bad area
nowadays.
right there.
That's always packed up.
You have 2 different flyover options here, right? You got one just for northbound traffic and this one, and then you have a flyover that comes to a T for all traffic. So it kind of serves as access to northbound and also as a U-turn, more or
You're
less.
trying to pretend they're New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like, right? So, but eventually, again, they settled on the corridor that's highlighted in blue here. And I don't think we're ever going to see another extension northward.
That
this
says the
point-
north end is still a stub.
It is still a stub. They
It's-
haven't officially killed it, but it's
It's a stub, but I wonder if they're reserving it for one of these flyover movements.
There have
you
been
know?
proposals to convert that into AI trumpet up there, but
Yeah.
I have heard within the last decade a proposal to extend something up towards Lockport, if not as a freeway, at least as an extension of what's there now.
Like extend Millersport Highway
Right.
around the east side of Transit Road.
Yeah,
As a
something on
highway.
this, I think, southeast
Yeah.
side of Lockport, as opposed to the original plan for 990 to go around the north side of it.
Mm,
yeah, some
okay.
I mean, because what is like currently State Route 93 Super 2 was actually proposed as Interstate I-90.
Was it really? Okay.
At a point, yes.
Okay.
All of this, of course, would require that the state DOT have money.
Which clearly was not the case. I mean, 990 was always on the back burner as far as highways were concerned. And when it came to the 80s and the 90s...
They somehow built some of it, which is...
They did build some of it, yeah.
Which is a bit shocking, but...
Yeah. Speaking of unbuilt highways, now we here at Roadway Wiz also study the history of unbuilt interstates. And a very prominent one in Western New York is right here in the Buffalo area. I'm not sure that a lot of you knew that there was a plan for a beltway around Buffalo and Niagara Falls, but that was what was in the plans for
That was outer loop.
yeah.
The outer loop?
And so the idea here was to build an outer belt well outside of the thruway, basically along the transit road corridor. And
What the fuck? Shut up.
see, this is why I can't have this guy come over, because he's making all the fucking noise over here. Are you all right over there?
I like the soundtrack introducing the segment.
Yeah, right.
You can thank YouTube with their commercials.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. So the idea was to build basically a long-distance bypass route around the Buffalo Niagara Falls metropolitan area. And very little of it was actually built. There are a couple of remnants here and there. This picture in the lower left shows the LaSalle Expressway in Niagara Falls. That was a piece of the outer loop that was constructed. And then in the lower right, we have the Mile Strip Expressway in the South Towns that was also constructed. Other than that, those are the only two limited access pieces of the highway that were ever built. There's also a very wide median on Route 179 at the US 219 interchange that was meant to be filled in with mainline highway roads in the median. That was never completed, obviously. And there was also significant work done in the area of the Eastern Hills Mall, east of Transit Road.
Not any actual construction per se, but a lot of ROW clearing.
Okay. So again, if we go back to this map, you can see where the outer loop is.
It appears to be snowing in Buffalo right now.
You can
What
see
not
how...
snowing in Buffalo.
July.
So if I draw the outer belt for you, that's the alignment, right? So again, to go over the sections that were actually constructed, the mile strip is down here. The LaSalle Expressway is up here. So basically the northernmost and southernmost pieces of it were built. And then you have the Eastern Hills Mall clearing is somewhere in this area.
Right there.
And then the 219 interchange is right here.
And one other thing to note about, at least on the LaSalle Expressway part, it's right near where Love Canal was.
Yeah.
I read a story that the construction of the LaSalle Expressway caused the disaster there
It was part of it.
because it prevented the runoff of whatever the hell was
That was
under the
part of it.
ground.
Yeah.
Right.
And adding on to this, as recently as the mid 1990s, there were plans to construct a section between US 20 and the thruway on the east side as an upgrade surface arterial. I was killed probably 25 years ago.
So that's what's
Well,
written in pink,
that
right?
was planned relatively recently as an at-grade.
It's like utilizing the right-of-way but using it as an arterial instead of an expressway.
Basically, yes.
Right.
But there were two stretches between US 20 and the thruway.
I'm talking that one.
Yeah, up in this area, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so as you can see, very little of the highway ever came to fruition, and it is most likely that it would have been included in the interstate system. And at the time that the outer belt was being proposed, the number 890 had not yet been assigned. So, more than likely, you would have seen I-890 here in western New York had that been built.
Would we have seen an I-1090?
Well, we basically ran out of X90 numbers, right?
Yeah, they would have used something else.
They would have used H90.
81s or
438.
So that's the outer belt for you in a nutshell. I gotta get this. Okay, there we go.
Ra-cha-cha!
Ra-cha-cha.
Next on the list of cities. So Rochester is about an hour's drive east of Buffalo. Buffalo is centered more or less on Lake Erie, whereas Rochester is centered on Lake Ontario. And it's got quite an interesting history of transportation, not just roads. It's also a point of travel if you were on the Erie Canal. Rochester at one time, believe it or not, did have a subway system.
The only completely abandoned subway system in America.
That is true.
And you can still look at a few of the old stops.
Yeah. And so there's a lot to get into here, but obviously we're going to focus on the highways. And one of the things you see on this map on the left, the solid lines are basically highways that were proposed and built. The dotted lines being highways that, by and large, never saw the light of day. There's
The right of day, really.
the light of
Wait,
day.
wait.
So, like,
530.
531 was built out to some degree.
390 was built up to the outer loop. on
That
kind
is
of
true. So we have that.
And outside of that, yeah, that's
Doesn't
Those are the only dashed lines that were built.
Doesn't
That's it.
Cleveland also have a fully abandoned subway?
At least
No,
they're not Detroit.
They have an active subway.
Yeah,
They're not
Cleveland still has-
Detroit.
yes, it has a.
Yeah.
It runs. Yes, Cleveland runs trains. I've ridden them.
Cincinnati has a partially constructed subway, however,
But it was never
used.
Yeah,
So-
that's the
It's a
difference.
different
there,
flavor
yeah.
of abandoned.
That's right. So again, if we look at
commentary on whether Cleveland had something that counted as a subway system and whether there are any open pieces of it.
It has a heavy rails. It's a right now. It's
So
a
it has
subway.
rail, but
It has heavy rail. Yes.
And light rail. We have both of them.
Everything that is currently open was the only underground portions of.
Why are we drawing donuts?
so I'm drawing these
I
two.
think that's a nipple.
So
Yeah,
I'm actually pretty sure this is over 18 right now.
National
Mark
Guard
Zuckerberg
movies.
would
Oh.
hate this.
That was a
On
very
that-
poor choice of color.
on that subject, I did highlight the choice that says this video is not made for kids.
Okay.
So I think
Ooh.
we're good. All right.
okay.
I draw these lines to call your attention to a couple of important things. The blue line that you see here is the outer loop
Booby.
freeway system.
And 104 was also part of the outer loop
That is
as well.
That is. Yeah, I drew that in the wrong
104
color.
is the
didn't
bikini line.
And yeah,
I? Yeah, and then the pink is the
Now
inner
you're just
loop,
going
which
in the total
we're
opposite direction.
so the inner loop is in the pink here. That's what we're gonna also get into here.
That's my favorite part of the whole.
Yeah, Steve just lost interest. I
Two in the
think.
pink.
Sorry.
One in the.
So, but you get the general idea here. The main line throughway stays to the south of the city, and so therefore access to downtown is served by 490, and of course 390 coming up from the south, the southern tier. Runs into a roadblock at the split for 590 and has to then traverse the inner loop to reach the outer loop, to reach 490.
and it's also been said that part of the reason why 490 goes far into Rochester from the thruway is because in Rochester they didn't vote for Dewey,
Those bastards.
so they didn't get a thruway.
Yeah, because at the time the thruway was under planning at that point, right? I think Rochester's
Yes.
the only city that the thruway doesn't directly go through. right?
Yes.
Right. Well, it doesn't go through the city of Syracuse,
But
but
it's
it's close
pretty
It
enough.
doesn't go
close.
through Binghamton.
They got a lot of exits into
It's
Syracuse,
pretty
though.
damn
Yeah.
close to Syracuse.
Yeah.
A couple other interesting things here from a planning perspective. One is that you may notice that 490 going west out of Rochester goes pretty far before it hits the thruway, whereas on the east side it makes more of a direct beeline. That is because there was, at the time this was built, a expectation that the city would grow west more than it would grow east. This expectation, fire the people who you bought those crystal balls from, it turned out to be wrong. And that's why you've got a lot of very rural 490 going west. And
Yeah, it's a whole lot of nothing once you get west of the airport.
but you'll notice on it that, yeah, going a majority of the way out, the bridges are even built wide enough for an extra lane in a lot of places.
Hmm.
The entire way it is.
Yeah, whereas
It's
a
a
lot
6-lane
of the growth was actually, I wouldn't say, a little bit to the north, but a lot on the east side, like
It's-
Webster, Penfield, even down towards Victor, and then
Yeah.
Canandaigua in Ontario
Yeah,
County.
that's
Yeah.
all.
The other thing,
390
too,
was,
is
390 was supposed to connect north to 490.
Yes, it
Some-
was.
Yes.
There is that actually
There are.
that actually faced community opposition.
Yeah.
But that would have been a more direct link to
That
head.
would have hit 490 exactly
Around Clinton Avenue.
over. There are ramps for it that are abandoned, but
Uh-huh.
there are ramps.
Yeah, but basically would have taken the Clinton Avenue corridor right through Brighton and then through the South Wedge, which is a neighborhood of Rochester near where 490 is.
Let me draw that real quick.
Yeah,
So
it would've-
that is...
It would have.
So it starts down here, right, at
Yeah,
this
and it-
interchange.
Yeah.
It kind of does
What if-
something like this.
Yeah, from the west, it would have hit about right there.
It would have ended up right about here,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit to the
Would
west.
have ended. Yeah.
Maybe roughly in this area, right? Yeah.
Over near the U of R and Strong Memorial Hospital and
Yeah.
Mount Hope Cemetery.
the other thing that actually this zoomed in version is better for discussing this too is we mentioned the abandoned subway. Part of the reason that subway was abandoned was because a lot of the right-of-way for it was actually used for the construction of a couple of these highways. If you follow, 490 and then down 590 a bit,
That was
the subway line
Yeah.
on the east side of town.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it went through downtown. There's one of the bridges downtown where you can actually still see the abandoned trackways directly underneath it. And then west of there, it just continued northwesterly a little bit. It didn't go very far
But
west.
where you can see that on the lower level, I think that's also the Erie Canal Bridge from the original
Yeah.
canal.
Yeah. But
And
that
of
was basically
course,
the Rochester subway, but we have
And of course, where
highlighted.
490 and 590 meet is the infamous Can of Worms interchange.
Yeah.
Was.
Well, they've corrected it over time.
It's a lot better now than it was. Let's
See
put it that
Nathan
way.
Perry's site on Wayback Machine for an illustration of what it used to look like and an explanation of the
Yeah. Because you needed an explanation for what you were looking
Yeah,
at.
there might be pictures on. You have to go through the Wayback Machine now on JP Wings Upstate NYRoads.com. I think that's where you'll find it now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now you,
All right, I think that's a suitable enough introduction here. So, as I mentioned before, 390, it's the longest auxiliary route in New York State. It beats out 495 by about 3 miles. It runs a major north-south route through western New York. It connects Rochester with the southern tier and cities like Corning and Elmira and I-99, but we won't talk about that here. Yes.
390.
We won't get into that.
390 wasn't the original number. Essentially, it replaced the US 15 corridor, but at one time it was New York Route 245, which actually goes through the Finger Lakes up through Naples and up to Geneva now. And then at one time it was New York Route 401, which if you dig into an obscure Simpsons reference, I think is basically I think where Mayor Quimby was running for re-election. Basically, the senior residents demanded that it get renamed the Matlock Expressway. Matlock!
See that? You didn't know you would get a Simpsons reference tonight, but
There's
we
always a
did.
Simpsons reference.
You know, how early in this presentation were we saying Boo Earns?
So the outer loop, as I showed you on the previous slide, is kind of a horseshoe-shaped highway around the central area of Rochester. 390 runs up the western side of this to meet 490, and eventually New York 390 takes over and takes you all the way up to Lake Ontario.
Lake Ontario State Parkway. But if you go to the interchange of 390 and 104, you can see ramps kind of where where the outer loop was
Yeah, that's a full interchange.
transitioning from
Yeah,
390 to
that's a pretty
104.
full interchange.
The extension up to the Lake Ontario State Parkway came a bit later.
Isn't there like a 2-lane exit for 104 East
Yes.
at that
Yes.
interchange? Because I think that, and there's a flyover there from
Yes.
westbound to southbound.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would explain what that was all about. So again, I put in my own photos into these slides. So unless otherwise stated, these are my own. You have a nice view here approaching the northern terminus, northbound approaching the throughway, and this beautiful new APL sign up at
Earns.
Very
the
angry.
at the 590
Angry.
split.
You know what I saw today? I saw an APL sign on a surface road.
Yes, that was
Boo!
You know what?
Yeah,
The
they
con-
Yeah, it looks
Going
like
downhill.
Perlin Stone.
the control city for 590 North is Irondequoit, and you know what? That would be. I don't know about you guys, but that would be a great place to host a road meet.
Yes.
I want to see it in West Irondequoit, though.
Yes.
Rest
That would be-
Irondequoit.
Yeah, it's more interesting on the west side.
No,
Is
it
it?
has to be hosted at a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Have to host at McDonald's.
I'm sure they have a garbage place there.
Oh, they must. It's Rochester.
Yeah,
It's not the
Rochester.
same
Well, no,
thing
it's
as...
Irondequoit. So,
Yeah.
you don't know.
490. It's the main east-west freeway across central Rochester and its suburbs. As we touched on before, it utilized a lot of the right-of-way for the Rochester subway between downtown and the junction with Interstate 590. And before the subway was here, the Erie Canal used to run through that same area. And I believe there are hints of old
are.
canal locks.
You can see it along, in Rochester, Bushnell's Base, and actually from exit 9, which is where 390 comes in, to Bushnell's Base, and it is the Erie Canal Expressway.
And a lot of that, route is old canal alignment before it was rerouted to the south of the center of the city. And then, of course, they put the subway in, and then the subway met its end, and then the interstate took over from there. The signature part of 490 through downtown is the Douglas Anthony Bridge over the Genesee River.
And that's actually not that old.
Nor is it named after you?
2008, I think.
Right,
Yeah,
originally it was
that's
the Troop
Yeah.
Howell Bridge because it replaced Troop Street and Howell Street.
Is that where that name came from?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actual street names.
Okay. So that's the picture in the center here.
And of course, also, part of 490 in Rochester, even where that bridge is, it makes up the southern part of the inner loop.
That is correct. Yeah. Now, the one thing I want clarified was which came first, the inner loop or 490 in this area?
Let me see.
I want to say the interlope.
Yeah.
I thought the internet
'Cause
was built concurrently with part of
One was
was.
one was overlapped into the other, but I don't remember which one came
490 was
first.
overlapped into the inner loop,
Right.
but it may have been. I think the eastern leg, one of the two legs of 490 was constructed with the inner loop for some distance.
Right. I know that
I
they
think.
started construction on the highway in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the full inner loop took a few years for it to reach completion, but it was basically built concurrently with some sizable part of 490 through town.
Oh,
But
Yes.
I didn't remember if the inner loop came first and then they just
Yeah,
routed 490 onto it, or if it was the other way around.
can't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was likely to some degree planned first, but built is a different question.
Yeah, I suspect that 490 was always meant to follow a section of the inner loop, but
The inner loop was opened in 1965, which is later than you might think.
Yep.
Which is.
But I-490 was still being built at that point. I'm going to guess some.
Final price tag on the inner loop construction was $34 million, which is equivalent to about $270 million in today's dollars. And the southern part of the inner loop was incorporated into the newly constructed I-490 upon completion
Yeah.
on that. And then
It was completed by the time they opened the inner loop. The eastern leg of 490 was pretty much complete.
And
So the western portion took later. They started working on the western portion in 1962, just before they opened the inner
Right,
loop.
and part of why Rochester Institute of Technology has a suburban campus in Henrietta is because the inner loop goes through RIT's old downtown Rochester campus.
Oh, really?
They
Yeah.
were very lucky.
So they kicked them out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Wow. No kidding.
Boston's inner loop would have done the same thing.
It's also worth noting that
Well, Boston's inner loop would have done that to what? MIT?
A couple different colleges, depending on
Harvard?
how you put it.
Yeah.
if any of you were wondering what the background image on a lot of the slides you've been seeing thus far is, it's this bridge.
They
Mm-hmm.
weren't, but okay.
That is correct. I like this bridge.
I am
You know,
not-
it's cities across America are going with cable stays for their signature spans, but this is a refreshing change from that, where they utilize an arch that
Tide
has a
arches-
little bit of personality to it.
Right, and it ties in well with the skyline too.
Yes.
We had a road meet in 2010 in Rochester where we actually looked at this bridge. So
You didn't get to climb it,
no,
climb the arch. You didn't bring a
No.
harness with you.
Tide arches are also surprisingly common now. We're
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah,
not so
yeah.
much for large spans like this, but the new Whittier Bridge, for example, is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
tide arch.
Yeah, and those
So
of you who
tide
were
arch and cable stayed are still very popular. It's things like suspension bridges that are much rarer, or new
Right.
trusses. You
Big
still see,
Champlain
but
Bridge.
it takes
Right,
some
well, and a lot of that too is just a question of okay, a tide arch and a cable stay are with the current cost balance and state of technology, the two ways of building something that's more than just a plain viaduct that are relatively inexpensive. Whereas if you want to build a suspension bridge or a truss, it's costly, and that's why you don't see it.
Right, the
Right.
cost of steel being such that you wouldn't build this as a regular arch, even if you decided this was the shape you wanted. This is a lot cheaper way to do it.
yeah.
Unfortunately, and some people like the clean-looking lines, but I like intricate truss work, and to me, this just looks plain.
Intricate truss work is also a lot of labor to put together.
Yes,
This
That's
is
the
New
other big
York,
cost.
after all.
I think at least one of our viewers would agree that unions are to blame for everything.
Oh, I'm not even gonna go there. Okay.
Someone who likes Matlock.
Anyway. All right, that's 2. So 590, and I'm amazed you're still awake at this point because I said you'd be asleep by now,
I'm
but you're
awake.
not. Okay.
590 is not a very exciting height.
Oh, it is boring as hell.
It is not, but
It is not.
it is
No, it's
noteworthy as the southeast quadrant of the outer loop. North of 490, it takes on the New York 590 route.
Don't let my anger
Notable for the Can of Worms interchange, which is
No
something
longer.
interesting to look at.
And
It
was
is-
more interesting to look at way back when.
Yeah, until they modernized it and made it boring.
It was very
But
fun to drive through.
yeah,
I
that's true.
might have been through there during the 1980s.
Okay.
I
We
might
went-
not have been through there.
Yeah,
in the
because we went
1980s.
1 year for vacation. We went to Niagara Falls, and then we went to Rochester because my mom went to school out there, so she went to visit her old college friends.
Yeah.
And it was before the Can of Worms was updated.
Yeah. And the other thing that's noteworthy about the 590 route is that the northern end of what is New York 590, which is also branded as the Seabreeze Expressway, was truncated in favor of a surface boulevard, a 2-lane surface boulevard with roundabouts at intersections
Yes,
instead
and
of signals.
and I remember the old 590 into town too. I have some pictures of that floating
It was
around.
a 4-lane concrete box beam divided expressway
Yeah.
that they then ripped everything out of and turned it into a 2-lane asphalt road.
Yeah. With a
Yeah.
landscaped median
Yep,
between
but
each
during
lane.
the reconstruction, they had
roundabouts.
exposed all the original pavement and if you were on the part that was open, you could see entirely the 18-inch or whatever cross-section of concrete. You could
Going
see the
back
whole
to-
original slab.
Going back to what, the 50s?
Right.
Yeah.
So it was actually interesting to be there during the reconstruction. And it was still 590 during the reconstruction. They turned it over upon the completion of it.
Right, yeah.
This is also recent enough that the old configuration is actually on street view.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, yeah, that's true.
Now, do we want to spend a minute discussing the iterations of the designations of the outer loop over the years?
Sure.
Because
Yes.
what we
We're
have
here.
today is kind of a mishmash brought about by the cancellation of the Genesee Expressway into downtown. Whereas the impression I'm under is that the outer loop, or at least the horseshoe shape that I highlighted
The
before,
underboot.
Was meant to have a single designation.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Route 47. Sorry,
Yes.
New York Route 47.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
So let's go back to this map real quick.
And parts of it were 47.
So you see how you have 390 coming up the west side, which ends at 490, and then New York 390 takes over from there, and then you can mirror the same thing over here on the 590 side, which is the eastern side. This was all supposed to have one number, wasn't it?
Yes, it started off as State Route 47.
It was 47 conceptually, and
Some
then
of it was 47. Maybe someone more knowledgeable of Rochester in the room can speak to what was 47 at any point.
yeah, I believe that the outer loop, if it was going to be signed as an interstate in its entirety, I thought that was what 590 was reserved for.
Yes,
Yes.
it was.
Yes.
Because, remember, 390 was supposed to go
Yeah,
towards downtown
because
Rochester.
390 was supposed to go up like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course that never happened. So 390 instead gets shoved over to the west side of the loop to have a proper terminus at 490. And then it appears that for continuity's sake, State DOT created the New York 390 and the New York 590 numbers for numerical continuity.
Which is par for the course.
From what I'm seeing here, except for the southern part of the inner loop, which would be from about the second, well, actually the only river crossing on 390, around to see what County Route 87 is.
Yeah.
That road going across was part of NY 47. So
Like this
they-
here?
There, across
Yeah.
the river to there, and then all the way up 390 to 104. And then, in its ultimate iteration, then the other side all the way up to the coast.
Yeah.
Even
So
beyond
obviously they
104.
built this part on a different alignment.
That's
Yeah.
So by the time they built that, 47 had died.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Well, this was the last
That's-
section of the loop
yes.
to be built, right?
Yeah.
Late 70s,
Right.
early 80s?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 47
Yes.
originally would have been on other streets paralleling these, which Wikipedia documents at the very least, if not one of our other road-friendly sites. But they jumped it onto pieces of the outer loop as it was built until they decided what they were doing with the interstates.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, it is worth driving that piece of County Route 87 looking for old New York 47 shields. Disclaimer, it is not actually worth that.
No, it's not.
There is at least one road in the Rochester area that has reference markers that is not still a state highway, but Shields. Yeah.
Anyway.
Who 52A, I want to say, has them.
The inner loop.
252A
You
is no
thought we
longer
were
still
only going to
on
talk about interstates tonight. Well, you
The
would be
highway
wrong.
to Kodak.
So the inner loop was, as we've alluded to before, a limited access freeway that encircled downtown Rochester, and it was built in the 1960s.
Built in the 50s, opened in the 60s.
Yeah, and so
And would have made a great Grand Prix course.
Yes.
I agree. You know,
And
they
It
very-
should.
didn't
and
stop a
very
lot of
well-
people from using it as one anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Very
It
walkable
was
at most
used as-
times of day and night.
It was used as
yeah.
trails, and it was always empty.
I can't say
Yeah.
I've ever driven under.
Yeah, the
70 on it.
eastern section was always empty, from what I can remember. Yeah.
Yep.
And so in 2014, the city decided that they didn't want to keep the eastern section of the loop anymore, so they closed it. And under what's basically an urban renewal project, the former alignment of the expressway was demolished and redeveloped. And you have your hand up for some reason. What do you
Yeah.
want to say?
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to point out that from a civil engineering perspective, this was done at a time when the bridges over it were coming due for replacement. And so instead of the cost of replacement, they spent the same money to fill it in. So it wasn't, they weren't spending tens to hundreds of millions of dollars on this. They would have had to spend it either way.
Yeah, it would have had to be spent anyway, and a road isn't really.
Doesn't receive,
Yeah, I think it was seeing about 6,000 vehicles a day.
Yeah, but, and I have driven
95 in northern Maine.
Yeah, but I
It's
have
like Main Street in my town.
yeah, yeah, but I have driven an area pretty recently. You honestly don't.
It's hard to tell that there was an
Oh, yes.
expressway there,
You-
right? Like,
yeah.
they've done a pretty good job with it.
They
pretty
filled
good
it in and
job.
turned it into a park. It's all covered in grass now.
Yeah, and there really isn't any extra traffic on city streets.
No, yeah, that's true. But the other point that I wanted to make here is that the Inner Loop was one of those highways that started a conversation both in New York and in national contexts about the future of certain freeways in urban areas. And, it's one of those things that has to be handled on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
But
And
I understand that most people are not as rational, I would say. And they will say, well, look, the Inner Loop was taken out, so why
NIMBYs
don't we
are
take
allowed.
out,
The
Why would we demolish
Embarcadero,
I-95 for every city on the East Coast?
the Embarcadero
right.
was taken out.
Well, the Embarcadero was a little bit before this, but
That was the
they-
first.
Yeah,
It,
it ignited the success of the Inner
Okay,
Loop
what came before
removal.
it?
I think
Harbor Drive,
started
Portland.
what?
yeah, that's true.
Okay.
The Inner Loop removal in downtown Rochester
And the
was,
West Side Highway
was
in New
start
York.
was
Yeah.
part of
That was a little
a
different.
it basically started a movement.
The West Side Highway was
Of-
actually the most similar to the Embarcadero in the sense that both were structurally incapable of still being used.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
Falling down.
it started a national conversation about the future of a lot of freeways in a lot of urban areas, not just the ones in New York, but elsewhere. And the long-term success of the Inner Loop removal remains to be seen, but it's certainly an interesting case study in what can happen when you do take out an urban freeway.
And considering that the population of Rochester has declined significantly since they built it, a lot of things that made sense in the 60s don't make sense
And
anymore.
it's
Yeah, the time that
Still
the Inner
shrinking,
Loop was conceived, the population of Rochester was roughly 332,000. And of course, a lot of people were working at Kodak, commuting. Kodak has a big campus right off the Inner Loop. And a number of other locales, within Rochester. It got a lot of traffic, but now, Kodak, unfortunately, is a shell of its former self.
This was back when Buffalo was big enough to have a professional sports team. Now they only have the Bills.
I don't know, you might need to stop making that joke soon.
I'm sure I won't.
Well, Buffalo doesn't have the Bills technically. It's technically Ocean Park.
There's a growing municipality.
Yes, well,
How are those
and
bicycles
so,
doing?
right, so if you're bothered by the eastern side of the Inner Loop being removed, you may want to blame digital cameras.
Yeah. Yes. I'm
Interesting point of view.
Yep. Kodak and Xerox used to be the major employers in Rochester. But both are shells of their oversells.
You'll also notice that modern inner loop route shields are black on white instead of white on orange. That's because colors like red and orange tend to fade rapidly over time. Much more than you're even going to see in these beautiful Alps roads.
And
and
that
other photos.
photo in the middle is those shields in the middle are still there as
Yes.
of the day after Thanksgiving.
Yes. I mean,
Doug Kerr, ladies and gentlemen.
He's single, ladies only.
Ladies.
Gentlemen, he's taken.
You've also got a button copy one in the lower left.
That is true, yeah.
And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the photo on the right and the upper and the top middle are the same.
I was wondering
I
that too.
think they are.
You think they
I
are
would
the same
not
one?
only not be surprised at that, I know for a fact that that's
I am.
the only place you're going to see the same assembly
All right, well,
at very different points in time. But
twice as nice, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess the shields got knocked askew at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Steve drove into the pole.
Yeah, mine was taken a few years later. So whatever that bottom sign was in the earlier photo was replaced with a new reference marker.
Oh, down here at the bottom. Yeah. Okay.
Syracuse.
All right. So Syracuse.
Salt potatoes.
Doug, you have the floor.
Oh, rats. Okay.
Doug, you can stay on the couch.
She's just 16 years old.
And Josh, you are muted.
Leave her alone. They said.
I got the block. Josh.
Okay, so Benny Bardona's people from Syracuse apparently love him, and apparently Josh does too. Okay, so what you're looking at is a couple of planning maps of Syracuse. On the left is the old, the Yellow Book, which was a series of maps of metropolitan areas around the U.S. So, what you see on the left, I-81 going through Syracuse, that's another discussion.
For the next few years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you have the loop for 690, which, goes through downtown Syracuse.
Yeah. So the blue line became 690.
And then, of course, you have,
Not really.
something that looks like the
There's no
throughway
boobs on it like
Yeah.
this.
as well. And then you have some, like Syracuse, more of a regional plan where you have that 81, 690, 90 that we mentioned. Also 481, which was built, of course.
Yeah.
And then you also have things like relocated Route 5, which was built a little bit around Cabela's, Fairmont. 695, which is a state route, not an interstate.
Not to be confused with I-695.
And then you have some arterials
295
like
Spur.
John Glenn Boulevard, which is a 4-lane arterial. It does not have any exits or anything like that. Was supposed to go to 41. Then you have the Southwest Loop 2, which which would have provided some redundancy for 81 through Syracuse if it was ever built. And then, of course, 690 was also supposed to go further east. On the map, it shows it goes out to Manlius. There were also plans at one time for it to go out to Chittenango, which is where the author of the Wizard of Oz, Frank Baum, was from. And if you walk into downtown, the sidewalks are yellow bricks. Okay, but back to Syracuse.
The Judy Garland Expressway.
Yeah. But back to Syracuse. Basically, it's a...
Yeah, so what I drew here for you is 690 plus what could have been the eastern continuation beyond 481. And then 481 is this other blue line right here.
You mean future I-81?
We're gonna
Possibly.
get to that in a second here.
I just want to be angry. In
We have to spend
Working up my
we have to
script.
spend a couple minutes on that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Here's a more current map from the
More.
80s. And I have to tell you, I got quite a bit of nostalgia looking at this map because my first memories of map reading involve maps like this, where the interstates are in the yellow and black shield, which is kind of weird. But the fonts are what they are, and I remember I wore out several holes in my old New Jersey and New York maps, way back in the late 80s, early 90s. And they all were maps from this general edition by Rand McNally from the
Did
from
you
the
ever,
late 80s.
as a kid, try to picture what these highways you had no clue about would look like?
I had an unusually high, ability to see like interchanges and different roads and whatnot, like cityscapes and all that kind of stuff. So, like if I was, 3 or 4 years old, let's say, I would have fixated on something like, this, right? Be like, ooh, this is a neat little interchange here. It's not coming straight to a T, right? It's kind of overlapping a little bit there. So that would have interested me a little bit.
And what is US 11 doing there? You could, in your mind, create an interchange that included everything.
I don't know that it was that advanced at the time. It was dealing more with limited access connections, so something like this over here even would have piqued my
Oh,
interest.
and I see one of the most polluted lakes in America on this map as well.
Yeah, but no, this kind of took me back a little bit, looking at this map as an example.
And 41, the northeast part of the map was eventually built.
Yeah, you can see, I think this map is 1985. So
Yeah, I recall, but at least I think that was built in the late 80s.
it was the last component to be built. Around 1990-ish is when it
I think
opened.
based on the coloration, that would be a tagging as being under construction. Not
Yeah.
Because I remember,
yeah.
I remember going on 41 when my sister, who's quite a few years older than me, was going to Oswego, and when we were going up to visit her, we would take 41 from the thruway that way. So
Okay.
that would have been early 90s.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, I have many memories of that as well, because I also went to Oswego.
Uh-huh, yes you did.
Yes.
Oswego's own Doug Kerr is with us. So, let's get into Syracuse's 3DIs. So we have 481, which as you can see on the maps is the eastern bypass around Syracuse. Built largely in the 70s and 80s. Like it was completed in 1990, but it was built largely in those 2 decades.
It was built as proposed as engineers and Mother Nature intended.
See, even Mother Nature gave them a pass. Wow.
From Jamesville Road, which is near where 41 ends, basically south of downtown Syracuse, to 690. 281 was the original number assigned. It was also signed for a short period of time before they signed 481. And I think part of that is, down near Cortland, there's a State Route 281.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering why they changed it, but that would make sense.
I-281 around Binghamton, that's why.
Well, there I have seen a map where there was a northern bypass of Binghamton that was proposed. I don't know if it was supposed to be an interstate, but that would have been very expensive to build with all the terrain around Binghamton.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why we're not talking about Binghamton during this video.
Well, there are no existing 3DIs in Binghamton, but there's also no concrete proof that would have been a 3DI.
Right.
So, and also I would think that it would be an odd numbered 3DI.
I'm pretty sure every freeway.
'cause
ever
if it ties
proposed in
back
Binghamton would have
into-
been I-88.
Because if that was to tie back into what was then Route 17, it wouldn't
Right.
have ended at an interstate, right? So I wonder if they would have, like instead of 281, maybe it's 381 or something along
Right.
those lines.
Or 181.
There's
or-
only one other 181.
And there's only one 381. There's only one 581.
There's only one 781.
Hey,
We'll get to
hey.
later.
Speaking of
But there
which,
are no 281s.
well, before I get to the next slide, does anybody want to chime in on this future I-81?
Yeah, no.
Possibility?
New York sucks.
Yeah, well, I will say if
We need more
80,
conservatives.
if 81 is torn down inevitably, which that's going to be a long battle.
Yeah, we're talking a long time. So
I might be dead before it happens. Or maybe not.
No, it has to get rebuilt if it's going to stay, so it'll be within your lifetime. Unless you drink excessively.
At this rate,
Drink
Shapilov.
up. Shapilov.
at this rate, my personal opinion is that my current viaduct holding I-81 will probably fall down.
Yeah, but the thing is, I
What do you think
don't
about this?
think, even with any plans, I don't think the way that 41 is built, unless they add lanes, can handle all that traffic that would also be carrying 81 through Syracuse.
Yeah.
That is my own
Interchanges at
opinion.
the ends are also the other big
They
thing.
also
Yeah,
there's
they're
one of the plans is to basically work on the interchange basically in North Syracuse.
This isn't a cloverleaf right
Yeah.
now.
That's Cloverleaf, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
You'd have to build high-speed flyovers at both
I've never heard of a
interchanges.
mainline interstate following Cloverleaf.
No, not at all.
No.
Well, there's 80 outside of. What do you
Yes, let's name all of the examples.
Ooh!
Interstate 69 in south of Memphis.
You would bring up 69.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Not right now.
Interstate 55 in Memphis.
But yeah, I guess the point here is that there's a significant amount of work that would need to be done to 481 if they were going to redirect 81 onto it. Right.
Oh yeah. It's also worth noting that no successful freeway removal proposal to date has actually removed a 2-digit interstate or any piece of one.
Right.
They've all either been not interstates or in a couple of cases 3DIs.
Or it's been relocated.
And we have an interesting...
Or if it's relocated slightly, that's...
Well, yeah, I-40.
But,
right.
But
And
we
the other
have an
thing,
interesting juxtaposition here right now, because at the same time that Syracuse, New York is talking about getting rid of I-81, you have folks in Alabama who are saying, well, wait a minute, we're just going to bulldoze it and rebuild it in place when it comes to I-59 and I-20 through downtown Birmingham.
Actively on
And the other
projects.
thing too, and this is going back to
They were dealt with a similar situation. Do we keep the urban freeway or do we redirect traffic onto I-459? And they decided to build the urban freeway all over again.
Because they're smart.
And well, I mean,
it works. For
I don't see
right.
how you can redirect two mainline interstates, one of
Yeah.
which being a near transcontinental highway.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, I touched on this when I was mentioning the Southwest bypass of Syracuse. The redundancy factor, you remove 81 through downtown Syracuse,
Right.
and 41's the major north-south route around town, and
And it really doesn't go through town either.
Right, so basically, let's say if you have like bad weather, accidents, things like that, you don't have any real ways to get around
Right.
what's left. And of course, the other thing too is basically like the Pyramid Corporation, which owns I still call it Carousel Center, but it's Destiny USA.
What is it called now?
Destiny USA.
Who came
they-
up with that?
Syracuse
crock
punch
of
plate?
you know what?
And that was also not built to the specifications. They were actually supposed to build a 4-lane expressway between 690 and 81 as part of expanding that mall.
No shit, really.
But I remember when they first announced the plans, I think it was like a freshman or sophomore in college, and watching the local news in Syracuse, I'm like, this is how they're going to bring jobs into Syracuse? And we're like, yeah, this is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing worth noting regarding the comparison to 20 and 59 in Birmingham is that, it's not just a difference in, political leanings of New York versus Alabama, stark as those are. It is also a lot of things come down to money. The fact of the matter is that Alabama was able to come together with the funding to rebuild that section of highway. And from New York's perspective, a motivating factor behind wanting to reroute 81 onto 481 is simply that it is less expensive than any alternative that
By a little
involves
bit.
rebuilding the viaduct.
Relatively speaking, I think if they accounted for the interchange rebuilds on either end to make it mainline 81, it probably really wouldn't save you anything.
And I also noticed on this map that the exit numbers for 690 are different than they are now.
Talk to us.
I just noticed this.
Yeah. I
Because
am noticing
basically,
that, yeah.
basically out near like Thompson Road and East Syracuse is like exit 17, exit 18, et
Yeah.
cetera, et
Did
cetera.
they renumber it to put exit numbers on NY 690?
No,
No.
because there's no exit numbers on New York 690.
But
The exit
it's-
numbers start on the thruway. Although I think one thing that happened is that they rebuilt the interchange between the thruway and 690 at 1.2,
That used to be
which
a breeze
caused a few.
Oh, really?
wood. Yeah, that
That was a breezewood at one
Yes.
point. Really?
was a breeze wood.
So did they then number all the State Fair Boulevard exits as different things?
Because there were like 3 or 4 new exits that were created when they rerouted
Yeah.
690
Yeah.
further
Farrell
away from the
Road,
breezewood.
Jones Road, John Glenn Boulevard.
Yeah.
So you
that's
still
4
from the
right
State
there.
Fairgrounds,
Yeah.
and you still see remnants of that.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, the other thing about I-690 is that it has mileposts that reflect the sum of the interstate and state highway
Right.
miles.
Basically, that and
So
41.
I-690 ends at mile 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
before
Yes.
this NY 690 expressway takes over from there.
Yeah, and then the 41 exit mileposts start from the southern end, near Syracuse, and then continues all the way up to Oswego.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. So, all right. Let's get out of Syracuse for a second and
Aw.
What
talk
happened to
briefly. We're going to come back to that.
Oh, okay.
781 is the newest auxiliary interstate in New York. It is not, however, the newest interstate. Who knows the answer to that question?
Interstate 99.
Boo! You are correct, though. It is I-99.
No, in New York, I was like, wait a minute. That can't
It
be
is-
the newest interstate out there. You're talking in New York specifically.
New York State, yeah. The Andrew Cuomo Expressway, I-99.
Memorial.
So, you don't need the word memorial. He's
You
still
will,
alive.
by the time they name it that.
Oh, maybe. So it serves as a main connection from the I-81 corridor near Watertown to the main entrance to the Fort Drum Military Reservation. And this is a connection that had long been sought for a number of years, and funding finally became available, and the road was constructed in the early 2010s and opened in 2012.
Yes, we had actually, no, I think it was might have been December 2011, actually. I do remember having a road meet there.
That was September.
September.
of
No, I think it
2011.
opened a few months after that.
The road was not open yet.
Right, and but we had a meet there, and saw 781.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the Delaware Road meet where 301 was under construction,
Yeah.
but we did get to
Right.
see a lot of what was going on at the time.
Right.
So also worth noting regarding the number here, you might say, well, why 781? There's these three other lower odd numbers. It's interesting to note that there is actually a sort of continuous sequence of odd-numbered X81s all the way up the entire interstate. There was at one time an Interstate 181 in Kingsport, Tennessee. It is now mostly part of I-26.
181 will never die.
You then have 381 in Bristol, Virginia, and 581 in Roanoke, Virginia. So with 1, 3, and 5 already in place, 7's the next number up the list. So New York just took it and grabbed it.
So apparently New York didn't want to repeat a number, so they took the next available number after that. Yeah.
Well, who knows where they might build 181, 381, or 581.
Yeah, they could finally build that in
Binghamton.
Podcast for Binghamton.
Yeah, it should be noted as well that.
Although I think that with Prospect Mountain being completed, they're going to sign 86 all the way in through Binghamton at this point. ASHTO's going to approve that.
Already is signed, please.
Right, but I think that
It's signed all the way in Orange County.
I think the only
New
thing
York
that's
has kind of
stopping...
stopped caring what Astro
Yeah.
thinks. There's a little bit
I'm
of
gonna
mafia
put an
fighting
86
by 86 out there.
I'm going to put an 86 shield here and
Yeah,
go F yourself.
Basically.
Yeah.
One of us who wants to be enterprising with a wrench could go out and uncover all the I-86 signs that are already up that are covered.
That are like 15 years old
Yeah.
Anybody would care.
in Orange County.
Maybe there are state names and we don't know it.
At least half of them are just already uncovered.
Yeah. Yeah, the covers fell off, probably.
Yeah.
Well, 781 does not look like it has any connections to the, long talked about, proposed, rumored, but probably will never get built rooftop
Yeah, but
highway across the state.
Yeah, let's spend a second on
Yeah,
that.
I have a
Yeah.
viewer question.
I was paying
Okay.
attention to that.
Why is it called a drive-through if you drive around the building?
Because you drive through the window and canopy where
You
it's
do not
located.
drive through the window.
No, well, you.
Well, some do.
Some
Not
people-
successfully, but
I needed to introduce this.
Some
viewer.
people-
Very often there is a canopy over it to keep you dry if it's raining, and you drive.
Some
through
people
that.
do
I've
drive
never
through
seen
the window, and they win the Darwin Award
Actually-
for dumbest driver.
Actually, I
Like Josh.
drive through liquor stores. You actually drive into the
there used to be one of those in New Jersey.
and they hop your trunk, place it in your trunk, and yeah.
You say drive-through ammo?
I mean, in an open carry state, I can see it.
I mean, Louisiana
Um,
has drive-through daiquiri
Yeah.
places.
That is,
yeah.
that is true.
It's like, hey, Doug, you're in Louisiana. Make sure I think
It's-
you're like, hey, Doug, I see you're right next to a drive-through daiquiri place, so I went there.
It's like, hey, it's Louisiana, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
One other thing
The straw stays taped to the cup.
Yes.
One other thing I want to mention about 781 is, now if you know anything about this channel at all, you know that I was in Hawaii this past winter, and I got to experience go F yourself. I got to experience the beauty that is Interstate H3, and the connection here that I want to make is that these are two of the only interstates in the entire system that terminate at a military installation of some sort.
I-185.
185 does?
Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay. I'm not familiar with
564.
that.
I think ends near one.
Doesn't end at a gate, but does serve a base.
Actually, you know what? 564 might.
Yeah, but
It doesn't end at a gate. You can legally drive through 564 and out on a border without
okay.
getting security.
Yeah,
Yeah, but-
okay.
this ends at that U-turn right there.
Yeah, right.
So-
So it's kind of like H3, how that ends at the gate to the Kaneohe Marine Corps Base. 781 ends right there at the gate to Fort Drum. So that's an interesting little parallel that you can make about two interstates that couldn't be really more different or further apart. An interesting little bit of trivia there. All right, now here is Doug's slide about 690.
Okay,
So-
yeah. So 690 is another one of those interstates that were basically built over, the Erie Canal, essentially.
Is this another old Erie Canal alignment
Yeah.
through here?
It's Erie Canal alignment, and and if you can see in the left-hand photo, that is also a platform for the old Syracuse train station.
Yes, the on-track system.
I thought you were going to
which-
say Syracuse subway.
No.
No, they had a.
Oh, that's part of the Rochester system.
They had a
yeah.
they had a ground level train system called On Track, which
Not to be confused with Amtrak.
which has a station.
What type of guideway did it run on?
It's called
The answer is on track. So
Yeah, it's called the
But
internet.
not Amtrak.
it runs Amtrak.
Yes. Yeah, so basically it goes
I'm on
from,
track.
as the slide says, Syracuse and suburbs. It'll serve your suburbs like Baldwinsville, parts of Liverpool, like the John Glenn Boulevard connection, which I'm familiar with because my brother lives right there.
Okay.
What happened to on track?
It died.
Why?
No one liked it.
Now it's
Why
off
not?
track.
It smelled.
Okay.
Robin laid an egg.
Yes.
That's
Solvay.
code, that's code for it was light rail before
And then
its time.
obviously Syracuse, and then East Syracuse, and out towards DeWitt and what have you. And of course the 690,
Batmobile lost
which
its wheel.
actually was recently rebuilt. State actually rebuilt that instead of twiddling its thumbs. Like
You're talking about the elevated section through downtown. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So let's be clear here for a second. The 81 proposal, 690 is not going anywhere under that proposal. 690 is completely separate. It's not under consideration for removal under the state's proposal.
One interesting thing about 690 is, during the Great New York State Fair, which is good fair, but it's not as great as like Iowa or Minnesota.
We need to
State
make the
Fairs.
New York State Fair great again.
But
They built an expo hall.
It is the greatest one in New
I
York.
saw the Batmobile there.
Did you?
Yes, and curling. But that's the basically during the fair, there's actually a traffic light that
Was.
control.
Was.
Yeah, that this was the
Yes.
last year.
The traffic light.
It was last year. That's why I went up there when I did.
That basically it would, basically control traffic. Basically for like people going to and from the fair. Of course, now with all the changes, parking, they built the Lakeview Amphitheater too near there. That basically is going by the wayside.
The Reds had
Yeah.
stores too, by the way.
Yep. We had touched earlier where 690 there was a, at one point the interchange for the thruway had updated and actually added a bunch of a few miles to the interstate portion. There's a state route portion which the freeway continues that goes out towards Baldwinsville and New York Route 48, and also New York Route 631, which is kind of a Baldwinsville bypass.
Yeah.
And then on the eastern side, you can see from the slide, there was an eastern continuation that was planned and built towards Chenango, and eventually there's another one where it's planned to be built to Panelist.
Yeah.
At the interchange of 41, there are ramp stubs, and
Yes, there are.
they're still basically they're paved. You can still see them. If you take there's a side road that you can actually kind of look. There's like a DOT yard, and just kind of look and see where the ramps would have come in there through there as well.
Yeah, and the 690 481 interchange, the stubs may not necessarily be obvious to you if you're passing through the ramps, but if you look at it on satellite,
Very visible.
yeah, and the stub ramps now lead to what I assume is a DOT maintenance facility
Yes,
of
it
some
does,
kind.
yes.
Yeah. So
That's kind of why you're still able to, if you're traveling from, the side road, you're still able to, look in the distance and see the ramp stubs.
yeah.
And
And you have overpasses that cross over ramps that aren't used in
Right.
that interchange. Yeah. So that's the deal with that interchange.
He didn't call fives,
You did
did he?
not call fives.
Oh boy.
Dude, I haven't even heard that in like, holy fuck, like at least 15 years.
Yep. So that's a bit of 690 for you. There's also, if you look, basically near the State Fair, there's a relocated Route 5, and if you go back to the Syracuse planning map, you can see a relocated Route 5 in east-west arterial.
Yeah. So that.
That basically, is basically having 690 there kind of makes that, redundant. So
Right. Yeah.
probably good reason why that wasn't built. So.
Yeah. Although I think the section that was built is more or less this piece.
Yes.
Right? And then 695 is kind of this, right?
Yes.
And then eventually they did build the relocated Route 5.
Yep, past Camillus. And
Out in
then
that
You're not even
direction.
gonna raise a stink about that?
Yeah.
He didn't call five.
So a lot of what this dotted line is here
He didn't,
ultimately
but,
was
like-
built.
He has nothing.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
All right, that's enough Syracuse for now.
That's enough Syracuse for one night, I
Yeah,
think.
Syracuse doesn't have food varieties that the other cities.
Well, they have salt potatoes.
Yeah,
they
salt
have dinosaur barbecue. They have Limp Lizard, which is basically dinosaur barbecue as
Yeah,
well.
I'm not hearing anything compelling here. Onward.
Also worth noting for everyone
That you can find
I believe
Speedies
my
and
wife
chicken
is
wings
watching.
there.
Hi, honey.
Oh, Alyssa's watching. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi,
That's,
Alyssa. But yeah, you can find chicken riggies
Where
and
do you
Utica
see
greens and chicken speedies in Syracuse. There's enough people there who said.
Yeah, Syracuse, I suppose, is close enough where you get a lot of Speedy's influence, right?
Speedies.
Even though that is a Binghamton thing.
Yeah, enough people.
Yeah.
It's only an hour away. Utica, we'll talk about riggies in a minute. And
Yep.
Utica greens and half moon cookies.
How about right now?
All right, and Utica. Now that's a city.
790.
Yes,
One
one of
of
the
the-
red-headed stepchildren,
Yeah.
or
How
maybe
do-
the black sheep. I don't know which is what.
well, I'm saving the
That's
black
I think
sheep.
they're both racist.
I'm saving the black sheep designation for an interstate we still have to talk about. But 790 is definitely up there as one of the more obscure
There's
ones.
one in every family.
Yeah. Yeah, as I mentioned at the top, we're talking about the 15 members of this extended family, and not all the members of the family are well liked or well loved. So
Yeah.
790 kind of falls into that unfortunate side of the bracket.
It's like
But this one is Super Nintendo Chalmers' favorite.
Entirely
Yes.
different with State Route 5.
Oh,
So,
no, Utica.
It basically exists as an overlap of existing state highway expressways connecting the thruway with downtown Utica.
Sort of.
It overlaps with routes 5, 8, and 12 over its entire length. It is never at any point an independent highway.
It has
and a point that actually parallels it throughway.
Yes, it does.
Hey, Doug, talk to
And-
us about the east end of 790.
it has a
That basically where it just kind of ends abruptly at the throughway.
Does it end at the interchange, or does it end
Yeah, so there is some
There's-
there is some debate as to where 790's
else-
eastern terminus is.
it's unclear.
A lot of what you will read online brings it comes off like downtown Utica is over here, right? So it makes a right turn to follow the outer roadway of the thruway. And a lot of publications that you'll read will have it follow this all the way to Leland Avenue and terminate there. For the purposes of my documentation, I've always taken 790 to instead follow this long ramp to thruway exit 31. That's one option. Now, one of the interesting oddities about 790 is that you cannot directly access it from the thruway exit 31. It's kind of a mini Breezewood, right? So you get off of exit 31, the toll plaza is right here, and then you immediately come to an at-grade intersection here. Now, in order to access 790, you have to make two loops like this in order to enter the interstate going westbound.
Or you can pass by a Price Chopper, then make the loop onto it from Leland Avenue.
You can also go this way, that's
It
right.
should be noted that it was not always a Breezewood. Interstate 790 used to be a Super 2 on the south side of a thruway.
So you're saying that both directions were over here at
Yes.
one point?
Yes, it was a Super 2.
Super
There.
2?
Yes.
And it was signed as an interstate?
Yes.
As a Super 2?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not unique in that regard.
Well,
So the removal of that link is what has led to the ambiguity of which way 790 goes.
Yes.
and then ever put back a completely direct junction
Yes.
like this, right? That's what you would expect to see.
Right.
But-
I wonder if Franco's Pizza serves good ribbies.
I bet they
You
do.
could find out at the Utica meet in the spring.
Yes, well, I'll test Mark.
There will be a Utica meet in early 2020.
Another
so.
thing about 790, this was actually information that I pulled from JP Wing's old site, is that there was a plan on the back burner to move the 790 designation to the existing New York Route 49 freeway to Rome.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is, it's a 4-lane freeway. Basically, until
Generally
you get
interstate
to a
Probably just XLB segments and stuff.
railroad line, railroad crossing.
Yeah, there's a
in
railroad
Rome.
crossing there, yeah.
That is the reason it is not interstate grade.
Yeah.
And essentially, would have terminated where 26 and 46 and 49 and
Basically, right at down.
everyone's favorite Route 69 comes in Rome.
Yeah. But that railroad crossing has kind of been a deal breaker for a number of
Yes.
years because you would have to
Yeah.
build a bridge there.
That didn't stop by 395 in Virginia.
Was that signed as with an at-grade crossing?
And at one time, there was
I
also
hear-
Alright, so
had a
also
great crossing.
that grade crossing was gone before it was 395.
Yeah.
It would have been 95.
Was it
at the
gone
time.
before?
and there
Alright.
was
See?
there was an at-grade railroad crossing on the Northway just before the Twin Bridges years ago.
Really?
Yes, and it's stood for like
Yeah.
3-4 years or so.
Yeah, hat tip to Josh for letting me know that.
So anyway, that is the short and bizarre history of 790. And I'm sure it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, but it is bizarre.
Steamed hams.
The ultimate highway network.
What
Dub,
what
dub, dub.
No other highway network can match up.
what cuisine are we talking about here?
Steamed hams.
Steamed hams.
The Albany cuisine is mozzarella sticks, but you dip them in Melba sauce, like raspberry sauce.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's basically
Hot dogs.
mini hot dogs with meat sauce.
Yep.
What kind of kid likes mini hot dogs?
You. So here is a general planning map of the city of Albany. What I've drawn in blue is Interstate 87 as it more or less is today. The pink line is Interstate 90. Of course, this is important because at this point, the thruway system reaches a major transition point between Interstates 87 and 90. So you have 90 departing the thruway system to enter the city of Albany. You have 87 taking its place at this point, and vice versa.
it was not always supposed to happen exactly that way either.
Yeah, let's get into that real quick.
Let's talk about this. Originally, the interchange between the free section of Interstate 90 and Interstate 87 was a cloverleaf. Well, under the original plan, that interchange would have mostly handled local traffic because Interstate 87 would have went straight south from there and hopped on the freeway at exit 23.
It's actually even shown on this map.
Yeah, I mean, which is shown on this map.
So let's get into these highways here. So you're suggesting that 87 takes a different route than what it takes
Takes the south
nowadays.
side.
Yeah, it takes this.
Oh, it takes the south side arterial.
It's parallel
The south side
to the
arterial.
freeway.
It just parallel hops on exit 23.
So I don't know if
my understanding of that had been that wasn't necessarily going to be 87. That 87 may or may not have still done what it did, but that people would have used that even if it was signed as a spur of 87.
Yes, it was not intended to be such a massive transfer of.
so 23 would have carried the burden of all that transition traffic, not 24.
Yes.
Basically, right?
Yes, and the traffic between north and east would have used 687.
That's true. Let's draw 687 in here, which is right up in here.
And depending on the plan, traffic between the north and west would have used either a westward extension of 687, which would have hit at a freeway exit 25, or it would have used proposed Interstate 88, which is off of this map.
No, Dan.
No, that's
Well, then what
87.
is?
That's not 90.
Well,
That's not
I drew 87 on the yellow line.
But that's
Isn't that
not
what?
90.
That's not 90.
Well, what's 90 supposed to be then?
But 90 was always the pink.
90 was always supposed to be the pink.
Eh, yes,
Pretty much always.
it was originally designated on throughway on my anti-archer spur, but it was generally always planned as the
Right. And other things too.
And then you're saying that there's a 687
there
going
were
off.
plans to extend
Let me
that
draw
west.
Let me draw that.
To 88.
Yes. Yes, that was supposed to hit the throughway at exit 25. It could have taken over 890. Nobody really knows because that plan never got all that far.
There were a lot of proposals that involved throughway exit 25.
Yes.
Yeah.
788, one of the proposals that would have met
That
the
would have been
throughway
at 25.
at 25. Another one is that there was what they call the Selkirk-Schenectady route, which would have went from around where the Berkshire Spur begins. And that
Yeah.
would
So
have went
let's
up to
let's
25.
spend a second on that. So that your Selkirk Schenectady route is more or less an outer loop.
Yeah,
That basically does. So if we have, here's where 88 comes in here, right?
Right.
And you have the Berkshire Spur coming in at the bottom of the page right here. So you're basically doing something like this.
Right. And it would have wound up at not at 88, but at
25.
Well, 25 is here, so I would think
26
it
is
would
there.
have.
No,
25 is the east end of it.
25 is that.
Oh yeah, 25 is over here. So then this. Let me do this again. So 25,
Follow the non-parkland.
and then you
Yeah, it
have
would have basically
something like
kind of arced
this,
up like that.
right?
Yeah.
So that's your outer loop
Yeah,
in the southwest quadrant.
You could have called that 890.
yeah, but
I mean, you really could have had 890
Yeah.
do this, right?
yeah.
And
The only thing is you couldn't have called that 890 if 890 was Buffalo.
It's
Well, that's true too.
Oh, yeah.
it could have been
890,
another number.
as we'll get into in a second here, 890 and Schenectady came pretty late to the party.
yes.
But it probably, I would imagine, would have been a relocation of Route 5 and Route 7 or something like that if
Well,
the interstate number wasn't available.
Or 5S.
5S,
yeah,
what part of
maybe.
I-88?
88
Interstate
maybe.
90N.
Yeah.
88 was supposed
Well, that's
to
190.
take. But 88 was supposed to take over the.
Yeah, if you look at this map on the left,
Southern
88
Expressway.
comes in
It's
at
Ooh.
a different angle and ends
It's
at
supposed
exit
to hit there,
25.
and it's supposed to take over the
Take
Southern
over
Expressway.
890 and then 7 to continue.
Never knew that was
East,
coming in at
right?
25. That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a map from like the late 70s, early
Right, because I'm
80s.
seeing 40 is where 136 is.
This also hints that 890
And
may have been
74.
extended west of its current end.
Yes, and
Yes.
that's something
Yeah.
that I
There
will
were
also
proposals.
bring up when we talk about 890.
There were
That is
proposals.
interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot to get into here with like where
There-
88
yeah.
comes in versus where it was meant to
So
come
it shows
in,
a
and then
much
the different
more
iterations of where 88 might have gone depending on where it would have come in. So
Ooh, 787 would have had a different. No, that's the
No.
relocated 7.
see, I made the same
Yeah.
mistake when I looked at that map
no,
originally.
That makes sense.
Notice
They got
how-
7 on 2. Does that make sense?
7 is now 2, and the 7
The
expressway
7
is now up
onto-
here.
Right, or alternate route 7 as
Which-
they call
Which
it
really
in the
gives
Which
credence to
should-
the argument that 787 does occupy the Color City Bridge.
Which it does.
It does
It
officially,
does.
and there
There-
are even mile markers on there that show it as so
Yeah.
and reference.
And there is a 787 shield on 70
Westbound.
on the
Yes.
Color City Bridge.
Yes.
And the reason why that basically they built, alternate route 7 and the Color City Bridge when they did
So here's
was because there was a bridge collapse for one of the, I think it was the 19th Street Bridge in Troy.
Yes, I think.
so another bridge for
Right. So it was-
redundancy purposes.
Right.
Right,
They kind
so-
of needed to build something right away.
Okay.
This suggests. Well, I guess once it touches down, that part of Hoosick Street west of 40 would just be an upgrade.
Right.
Yeah.
And
We've
then-
also got 2 on 378. That's interesting.
And then
Yes.
88
Huh.
would have followed
Yes, it did.
7 basically out to, in some fashion
Yeah.
out towards where Thruway exit 25 is now.
Well, Anthony, they had 2 apparently beginning in downtown Albany at that point.
Yes, it did.
Oh,
So that is entirely different.
Yes.
which is okay. So it would have begun while concurrent with
Yes.
32. Which okay, it's one of those things.
Yes. It ended in
Yeah.
downtown Albany.
And US 4 is still north-south.
Yeah. Also interesting to note that the most prominent section of the 687 proposal is on this map to the right.
Which
And again, we'll touch on 687 in a second here, but it was prominently put on planning maps well into the early 1970s.
Yeah, man, it was planned. It was a pretty solid plan until the early 1980s.
And another thing about that, I'm not sure if you're touching this, otherwise in the presentation, is that the South Mall Expressway, which was basically goes through the Empire State Plaza and was originally supposed to go out to
Right.
where
I think
exit
you.
8 is on I-90. Yeah,
Yeah.
Those
I think,
those
yeah.
stub reps.
On the
I-887?
yeah.
It could have been.
Well, there would have had been an X87 available for that. Yeah. That and the mid crosstown arterial, which we saw on the previous map.
387.
Yeah.
Right, although
A lot of new X87s, I think, could have been introduced
and
into the
maybe
mix
a
there.
handful of XI-88s.
Yeah, depending on where 88 was routed in all of this. Yeah.
So instead of 890, that could have been 888.
And that would have freed up 890 for
Yeah.
something else.
For the outer
and then, yeah, well, you get the idea.
I like the idea.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts here in Albany, and we're going to try to touch on as many of those as we can. And while I have this broader view open, why don't we sketch in roughly what you were talking about earlier, Doug, with the I-88 alignment? So if it comes in here at 25,
Yeah.
right? So let's say it does something like this instead,
Yeah.
and it goes up what is now 890, then goes off on what is 7, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it would have basically followed 7 onto the current 7 Expressway and then east. From
I think we could pave over the river for this one.
Yep. And then it was
Through Troy and then out to
yeah.
the east.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. There were plans of the drawing. There were plans of the maps that I had seen. That I've seen at one point, where 88 was supposed to go at least out to Bennington.
Yeah, there was not anything particularly firm
Portsmouth.
past Eddington.
That's
but
not
yes,
an angry face.
There
Yeah, I
were
was gonna say I want to see an angry face.
there were proposals that Interstate 88 could follow Vermont 9 and New Hampshire 9 all the way
That's
out
better.
And 101.
to and 101 all the way out to Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
And multiplex with 95, and then take over US 1 to Calais.
And then, of course, you also had a plan where this is veering off topic, where I-90 was supposed to follow Mass Route 2.
Yes.
Right, that was a
That's
separate
awesome.
interstate highway from the Mass Pike. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I wonder how that would have tied in with I-90 and basically into New York.
Yeah, what would New York have done with that? All right, so
890.
I think we gave you guys pretty much a good overview of what Albany leaves us with. Yeah. So here's 890, which, again, did not begin life as an intended part of the interstate system, but it inherited the 890 number.
And it fits well.
It matches, it works. It's a pretty short route. It's less than 10 miles, but it loops back between the thruway at both termini.
It was part of a pilot program during the 1970s to test distance-based exit numbers.
Yeah.
So this was one of when New York was like, oh, maybe we'll try distance-based numbers. I think they were trying this out with the eventual thought that we'd be switching to metric. But what they did was they used the exit numbers in 890 basically are mile-based.
And
which
kind of works because the exit numbers are a mile apart anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And another thing is, see, like there's a New York Route 890 that basically crosses the Mohawk River.
Yes.
There were plans, and you can thank Chris Jordan for writing this out, that there were plans to expand the highway north from where it ends now up to town of Boston in Saratoga County over near New York Route 50 and Middle Line Road. So basically would have went through Scotia and Glenville.
Now, I'm not that familiar with that part of New York State. Is that in the direction of Amsterdam?
No, let's go heading towards Saratoga.
No,
so it's curving back north.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of northeast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, and
so that would have been a continuation of the 890 freeway, but extending back around on itself towards the north and northeast.
That could have been the beginning of I-92.
Well, the long proposed idea for I-92 was to have it begin in Glens Falls, which is not that far from there.
Yeah, I'm head across like Glens Falls.
Or might I-88 and 92 have become one and the same had they built 88 across Schenectady and Colony. But we'll never know the answer to
Colony.
Colony, yeah.
Yes.
How did you say that?
Colony.
Colony?
Yep.
That's the same as colony, just with a different inflection.
No, it's Colony.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I got.
If we start calling you Anthony, how would you feel?
That's the same pronunciation, just with a different inflection.
Yeah, you should head north once in a while.
Yeah, that's the upstate accent.
Let's get into some X87s, shall we?
Yes.
787.
That's a current 87.
It is.
It's on X87.
No, as in an X as in the hundreds place.
X is a variable.
Yes.
So X is equal to 787 over 87?
No, X is Kitty with an I. Shut up.
Wow.
Well, now I'm taking everything away from this at the end instead of leaving it with you.
And remember, we were talking earlier about 787.
Off the table.
It basically serves downtown Albany. Basically follows the Hudson River through Menands, Watervliet, and up to Troy. Couple of things.
Water what?
Watervliet.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Watervliet?
Yes.
Watervliet.
Okay.
I lived there for a while.
Okay. Well,
I am so sorry.
I no longer
He's
call
across the
Fishkill
river from
Upstate.
I live up the
Really
hill
don't
from
know
him now.
Upstate. Ooh.
well, by my rule of it beginning in Poughkeepsie, I'm not upstate, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
You're mid-state.
Basically, there's a few things with 787. There was actually once an amusement park over in Menands where 787 basically crosses through the land where this amusement park was. This is going back a century.
Oh, all right. So it's not
So
like
you got that. You have there was a movie called Salt that was out about 10 years ago. It starred Angelina Jolie, and there was a bridge chase scene where all the stack interchange along 787. They filmed that there so they can get all the stack interchanges. And of course, 787, and it extends also as a state route into Cohoes. There had been talk years, for having a improved route between Albany and Mechanicville, which basically 787 serves part of. Of course, also when we're talking about removing freeways, there's a small effort, basically to remove 787 through downtown Albany, make it a boulevard.
Far smaller than any other.
Yes, and one thing that I always like to point out is that there's a rail line that runs through the median of 787 in downtown Albany, goes to the Port of Albany, which basically you still have to deal with that. 787 kind of masks that rail line. It's a freight line.
Yeah, it kind of runs on the median, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
787 was built on top of a old train yard, so
Yeah.
there are still
The bucolic riverfront of Albany, New York.
yeah.
I just wanted to pass along some user comments. Utica sucks because Karen is there. So we didn't know that, but Utica does suck. And they do not sell cranberry juice in Utica. Thank you, Peanut Gallery.
So as you can see in this photo on the lower left, there is indeed a southbound I-787 shield on the Collar City Bridge leading away from downtown Troy. Both of the termini of this interstate appear to be up for debate. We've mentioned how the northern terminus is. Does it end at the cloverleaf between 787 and Route 7, or does it end on the Collar City Bridge?
That's not really in question.
Yeah.
Right.
787 is interesting because of both ends of it are unsigned.
Yeah, there's no clear answer to the southern terminus either. Does it
I
go?
mean, there's an official
It
answer.
officially ends at a throughway exit 23. However, it is signed ending at US.
Isn't the last piece of it to 9W actually another segment of NY 787? Reference route?
No,
it's like another reference route, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a reference route.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. I remember.
But it's not clear because 787 is signed as going both ways.
Yeah,
so it's
not
kind of
signed.
It's bizarre how they do that.
Right, I think that would have
and-
tied in with the mid-crosstown arterial had that ever been.
Yeah, that's where the mid-crosstown
that's where the
arterial was
crosstown
tied in,
ended.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, there is an end 787 shield at a stub at US and then IW, so
which is not 787.
which is not 787. It's a reference route, but
Right.
So it's really the beginning of 887. I've decided.
Or Interstate 1490. All right. Who wants the floor for 687?
Doug.
Okay, 687. What can I say about 687?
It's unbuilt.
It's unbuilt. It goes basically. The only part they really built goes to an office park.
There was a road meet in that office park.
it's
Corporate and cold.
Yeah, it's probably the most infamous canceled freeway upstate.
Yes, it
That's
was. Basically, Corporate Woods Boulevard is the part that they built. It was deleted from the interstate system in 1973. Not because of a lack of funding. It's also interstate. It was never built because of a lack of funding for the program. In addition to the community opposition.
Congratulations, your eyes are working.
And then the one thing is, this ties in with the Northway, I-87 to you folks from out of town, but we call it the Northway in Albany. That for years there was no exit 3, and that was supposed to be where 687 tied in with the Northway. That has recently changed within the past few months because there was a new access road, basically new access point built for the Albany International Airport, and was given exit 3 as a number. But 687, basically as it says, would have been the connection to the airport, would have been basically the bypass of the where 87 and 90 tie in as well.
And they had, would have
And they
taken
had
a lot of
built
load
the
off that
interchange there for 687 to eventually be built.
Right.
Yes, the current interchange at exit 4 and 5, which is currently being partially removed, was designed with
Why is this
space
upside down?
with 687 tie-in.
Yeah, so I rotated this map on the left
sideways.
to have north pointing upward. So it kind of looks like it's upside down, but that's because the original presentation,
It looks like that.
yeah. So
And west up, which is just
So they,
Yeah.
they never defined what that interchange was going to look like there.
yeah, it appears that they hadn't made up their
Ever
mind
defined.
yet, because you see how the line continues off this way.
Yeah,
But when they built the CD
So-
roads there,
that's an earlier plan. I have also seen some plans that have it taking a more easterly track and hitting at exit 4 too.
Like more up this way.
Yeah.
The more northerly track.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes. It will. But if taking a track like that in some plans, it was. They had a
But yeah, so
quarter plan.
And that crosstown arterial you see is actually south of I-90 is State Route 85.
right, this part of it was built.
yeah, and that part
right?
was built.
And then this was always a dotted line on a map to
Yes.
connect in with 687 to
Yes.
the north.
Yes.
Obviously, that never got built once 687 was canceled.
we're
but
2 hours.
So that's the deal with that. And of course, this interchange here at Corpus Woods Boulevard is
Is
the most significant piece of 687 that ever saw the
Yeah,
light of
but-
day.
It was built for a 6-lane freeway. It is.
Yeah, it's beautiful for an
It's
access to
beautiful.
yeah.
Office Park, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful high-speed interchange. You
Oh
can't-
yeah, you can take all these ramps at 70 miles an hour. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two of them at least. But
Oh
The
yeah.
important ones.
All right.
Once you can take it.
Now I mentioned.
87.
Now we mentioned, and we're saving the best for last year. Believe me. I mentioned before when we were discussing 790 about black sheep of the family. Well, I would say that this probably fits that bill the most.
It's the black sheep of the entire interstate system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be.
It is
Yeah.
the only-
I-180 says hello.
Actually, it might be the black sheep of all freeways in all
I
countries.
think Interstate 587 is the only signed interstate that is not signed from its parent.
Yeah, you look at the photo on the lower right here, and you notice how we're approaching Kingston. We're approaching exit.
I-238 is not signed from I-38.
Well,
Wow.
I-30 doesn't exist, so.
Yes.
But it's
so-
not
Exactly.
signed from its parent.
yes.
Yeah, that assertion was false. Look at all of the X78s in New
Actually, I
York
was
City.
gonna say, actually,
Thank you.
278.
You notice how if you're going on 87 approaching exit 19 for Kingston, we see Route 28 prominently signed, but we see no mention of Interstate 587.
Or US 209, which is nearby as well.
Yeah, they really could do this a whole
Yeah.
lot better than they've done it, but
Is it true that
Um,
Interstate 587 was only designated so that our nation's one-time capital, well, actually I guess it was New York's one-time capital, could connect to the interstate system?
I wonder why this interstate is even
But there
here.
are so many. I
You
mean,
know,
Was it not funding that some of Colonel
was-
Chandler Drive was just
I
built
am certain
with
it was
interstate money, so
funding. I'm
therefore it
certain
got
was
a number.
fun. I'm certain it.
yeah, because you think of all the interstate highways
It's fun.
across our country that don't exist, and then you look at this and you wonder why this exists.
It's almost certainly things of.
It's some sort of funding issue from the late 50s. That's
But-
probably what it came down
Right,
to.
and I mean, you know, it's not unique in the regard that, you know, there are other places in the country where you have a small city that most people in America have probably never heard of that has an interstate. You know, just look at I-759 in Gadsden, Alabama, or
I-180 in Illinois.
Kennewick, Washington. Now, see, I-180 is too well known.
I-194 in Battle
it's
Creek.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And I have been on I-182 in Kennewick.
As am I.
I'm sure you have, Doug.
As have at least
Yeah.
half the people in this room.
Yeah.
Except me. Boo.
And me.
I've
You're
never
not missing
gone
a whole
either.
ton, actually.
So, yeah, literally half.
Yeah, so half.
50-50.
So
It's the Pacific Northwest.
one of the
Transition
one of
there.
the interesting parts about 587 that's going to come true in future years is when the eastern terminus is rebuilt into a roundabout. So that will mean that the two termini of this interstate are at roundabouts.
And it should-
That's got to be the only example of that.
Yes, it is,
I
and
would
it should
think,
be. I should also note that Interstate 587 has never had any real exits.
Right. It
has only had one
that
grade separation total, and the western end started its life as an old-style traffic circle, so it never had a freeway grade connection
Yeah.
to Interstate 87.
And the other point of clarification here is that it does in fact end at that traffic circle. The ramps to the thruway are not part of the interstate.
Yes.
So in that regard, it doesn't even actually technically connect to I-87.
Yeah, it's not signed from its parent, and it doesn't connect to its parent, and it ends at two traffic circles. So how much ridiculous can you get?
Well, if it doesn't connect to its parent, then that's why it's not signed from its parent.
I-238. You get more ridiculous.
Yeah, you have to wonder what the thruway's logic is for that. Like,
I
what?
think it's just that, since it's their ramps, they don't have any reason to put the number on there. I mean,
No one's
Because
following
once you go
587.
through the toll plaza, the first overhead gantry you have there, it does mention 587 East for
It
Kingston.
shows 587 every sign off of.
Right,
there,
but just not on the guide signage on the thruway itself, which is interesting.
587 is signed very well.
Yeah, once you're through that traffic circle,
Every
and
sign pointing
yeah.
who that road is signed.
Well, you see the picture in the lower
587
left.
28.
I mean, there are plenty of 587 shields
Yeah.
once you're actually on it.
And then in
But-
other states, there are secret interstates. I'm wondering why this was never one of those secret interstates.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments earlier mentioned I-296 in Michigan.
I think I recently saw
is
something online
very well
about that.
signed.
296 in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
I mean, there
So-
are other examples of unsigned
Oh,
interstates
sorry.
out there. Most of them very short. It's also not unique in the sense that because I think part of the reason it's not intersecting 87 is because of the whole old toll road thing. You do get other situations like that. Like for example, the eastern terminus of I-376. In spite of the fact that it is free flowing with the Pennsylvania Turnpike, technically I-376 ends at US 22 there. It does not connect actually to the turnpike itself.
Top comments for you.
Very good.
So again, here's a map of what we were talking about before, right? So
Has all of
So you have the thruway exit 19 ramps up here, right? And let me do this in a different color. So you have exit 19 up here, the toll plaza is here, right? And then you come to this traffic circle. And that's the conduit
others
point
formerly known as
for
Prince.
yeah. So that's how you enter 587, which then ends at this intersection here, which is due to be converted into a circle as well. It's interesting how when you look at this map, one of the things you notice is that they don't even mention this highway as a major highway in the color scheme. Like 28 up here has the markings of a major highway, but 587 down here is like, whatever.
Not a freeway.
I mean, it bypassed the Super Bowl cuisine, so.
Well, that's why they must have built it and given it interstate status,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. The Tom Brady Expressway. So yeah, it's one of these weird things that you see every once in a while on the interstate system. I mean, we think of the interstate system as this expansive thing. So you're bound to run into a few anomalies along the way. And this is one of the more notable anomalies in the whole
A
country.
state full of anomalies.
Well, yeah, we've touched
We live in
on...
a state that itself is an anomaly.
yes.
In what sense?
It should be East
in the
Jersey
sense
and
that
West
it has
Jersey.
none of its own metro area. It's just part of Philadelphia and New York.
False.
Yeah, false.
Trenton has its own metro area.
Nah, that's the border between the two metro areas.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Not as
The
defined.
commuter rail begs to differ.
It should be East Jersey,
Atlantic
East
City
Jersey
has
and
its
West
own
Jersey.
metro area.
East Jersey.
Yeah, that's part of
It was at one
it's on-
time.
Yeah, that's why I
It
mentioned
has
that.
commuter rail service to
No,
Philadelphia.
you're reaching now.
Hey, does anyone
I'm
have
really
any
hard,
questions for us?
So we've reached the end of the slideshow. So if
We
you
already
folks,
lost more than half our viewers at the 2-hour mark.
that's
so.
not true.
They all said good night.
So if anybody has anything they want answered from us real quick before we move on to the
I just
next...
want to know what Karen's problem is.
I don't even know who Karen is.
I don't know either, but all I know is that Utica is bad because Karen's there, and I haven't learned why yet.
Joe knows who Karen is.
I bet
Joe who?
Joe Mama!
Oh!
I bet Valerie would know. Why don't you ask her?
I think 2003 invited him. That's the problem here. These jokes are just a little, Joe anachronistic.
Carl K wants to know.
You just have ligma.
When New York State.
Carl K wants to know. Would you get rid of the echo, please?
Would you get rid of the
Thank
echo,
you.
please?
Anyone know when New York State is going to mileage-based exits?
They
They
already
are
are.
already.
They kind of started already, with 84 being the
NY
first
95
one.
is officially mile-based now, as in there were no exits.
There are no exit numbers on that anyway.
I-99 is mile-based.
And 781 are very
71.
781 is one. 890, as we mentioned.
I-99.
Yep.
99.
And the Taconic.
It's conic.
It's iconic with the new signage. Yep.
I-78 should be converted to mile-based.
A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah, just add the and it's mile-based.
Yeah.
1A, 1B, 1C.
I believe
Yeah.
the Cross Bronx at one time was mile-based.
It kind of is, yeah.
Around 2009 or so, the state started trying to convert it to sequential numbering, and this resulted in quite a lot of mixed exit numbering, and then they changed their mind and put the old numbers back, but there is an anomaly that exists to this day in the sense that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey went ahead and changed their signs for exits 1B and 1C to say 2 and 3, and for 1A to say 1. In concordance with New York's desire to make the numbers along I-95 entirely sequential. And then when New York changed their mind, Port Authority said, well, we're not spending our money because you can't make up your mind, so exits 1 and 2 are still signed on Port Authority signage like such.
Anthony, I'm told that your voice is like a combination of Fergie and Jesus.
Yes.
He needs a little longer hair, though, for it to be like Jesus, though.
He's got the beard.
Yeah.
He's got the white skin that we all know Jesus had.
Well, I would imagine that the I-90 exits, though they are in reverse, they will be corrected when they do make the switch, right?
As long as the throughway goes to ORT before they renumber, that's a likelihood.
As it currently stands...
Well, the ORT situation on the throughway is another story, I think.
No, they're converting.
Well, they are right now, but it's not necessarily in line with the renumbering of exits.
Touching on...
No, they have to do it first, because otherwise
Yeah.
the toll tickets would be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, the PA Turnpike was able to work around that.
Touching on I-90 and I-87, currently as it is, most of I-90 has exit numbers increasing, heading west. As
Entirely the opposite of convention.
As part of any change, FHWA insists that any any exit renumbering follow the mileage of I-87 and I-90.
Yeah, so you won't have I-87 have reset its interstate exit numbers 3 times.
We don't.
Right?
So there's an open question, not
Yeah.
just in New York, about what the FHWA is going to require when it comes to toll roads. And the New York Thruway Authority is by far not the only toll agency that currently has sequential exits that is interested in this, because the idea is I have heard personally from the FHWA that they only interact with state agencies, so the DOT or its equivalent. Any toll agency or that maintains roadways is not subject to FHWA rulings. So in theory, the Thruway Authority could keep the exit numbers they have now, and FHWA does not fund toll roads, so they're not at risk of losing funding. The open question is, what would the FHWA do in retaliation? Would they force the state's hand in some other way and say, if you don't get your toll agency in line, you don't get funding?
Which they have
And there's
known to threaten.
Well, they have not currently, to my knowledge, threatened, for example, New York by saying if you don't get the thruway in line, even if you do the rest of your roads, you're still in trouble.
Well,
if they don't do that, what pressure is there on the Thruway Authority?
Yeah.
And if they do that, how much of a fight would they put up? That's an open question, and a lot of agencies already have converted before that even came up, so we're down to the last couple.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, if they ever did force the hand of the New York State Thruway Authority and the New Jersey Turnpike Authority to redo the numbers, that would open up a complete Pandora's box.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would, because
when the Turnpike especially, that's a
when you're down to that
mess.
few, if they force their hand, I think at that point you just say they're the last two in the country. They're just going to do it. You're not looking at 12 states anymore.
You say they're going to do it, but the question is, how are they going to do it? It's worth noting that in the other instances out there where you have a toll road that does not follow the directly an interstate main line, even the mile-based numbers tend to follow a toll road. You have the Kansas Turnpike has its own mile-based numbers that are I-35 for a while, then it's I-335, which whatever. Then it's I-470, which is a big jump, but still kind of whatever. And then I-70's numbers jump down by 150 and then back up by 150 or so.
It should be noted that distance-based numbers seem to be a very North American thing. If you look at like highways in Europe, for instance,
it's sequential.
It's sequential. Even like Nova Scotia and I believe Newfoundland and Labrador also use
Newfoundland is sequential right now. I'm going to leave that one.
Yeah, Nova Scotia is kind of a.
Nova Scotia has no plans I know of to change Newfoundland.
They also have less justified exit tabs.
So let me just get to a couple more.
Yeah, I can't answer the Turnpike Authority because I actually know that answer and I really can't share it.
Oh.
But as far as the Thruway Authority, my guess is that they would, if forced, they would fully comply. Because I-90 starting from 1 is an obvious one to jump to New York State DOT. I-87, I've heard a lot of different things.
There have been so many.
Because you have...
Because it directly affects the exit numbering scheme on the Thruway.
The Thruway should be continuing from the Deegan. I-87 should be numbered with mile 0 at the Triborough Bridge.
Right.
I've heard both ways that when they renumber the Northway, will mile 0 be the Thruway mile 0 or the Deegan mile 0? I've heard both.
Yes.
Hopefully they get it right and they do the Deegan mile 0.
Yeah, I would hope so too. Basically, I would hope the idea is to basically just get rid of 3 sets of exit numbers.
Yeah.
Because
the fact that it resets to 1 3 times is kind of ridiculous.
Because as it currently stands, there are 3 exit 2s.
I would expect that they renumber the Northway first, so that'll get rid of one of your exit 1s. And then they're going to wait to see what the Thruway does. And the Deegan might go mile-based only at the point that the Thruway joins the whole mile-based system.
Well, the Deegan is also one of those things where going mile-based actually involves reducing the highest exit number.
Yeah, but they'd have to do that to coordinate with exit 1 becoming 9 or 10 or whatever it would be.
Yeah, won't really change a lot.
Let me just answer a couple more of these comments real quick. Do you have any plans to go to Rhode Island or Massachusetts? I would love to go there at some point. It's been far too long since I've been there.
Not really.
Can you guys?
Yeah, you were there a month and a half ago.
Well, that's true. We were there for Doug's meet, but I feel like Northwest Indiana Elevators is talking about southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island, which I have not been there since.
There's
out that way in 2013.
Yeah, there's a decent network to explore there.
Yeah. Can you guys do a webinar about the Somerset Freeway and the long delayed completion of I-95? I would love to do that someday.
That would be fun.
How about Delaware? Again, I would love to do a webinar about Delaware. No complaints from this end of the broadcast. Kilometer-based exits on Delaware Route 1. Hey, you're not wrong about that. I'm not going to put up an argument there. Eventually... What?
And on I-19.
I-19's another one. Yep.
Actually, Ian Peters' latest sort of goes back to what we were just talking about. He raises a point in my mind. How are they going to number 287? is mile 0 on 287 going to be considered the New Jersey border or the cross Westchester?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
That's a whole
when they do
other
that.
can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, the closer you get to New York, I think the stranger this thing gets.
That's going to be the Mid-Cape Highway all over again.
And what are they going to do about it?
A whole bunch of people in Westchester County are going to start saying, well, why is this suddenly exit 13? What's going on here?
Why is this exit 21?
Right.
Yeah.
I-287 ends at that interchange right there. in
Imagine the
Belfort,
LIE starting at exit 1 or 0.
Instead of 13.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's even...
Or my favorite
And what's
example.
I-495 and what's NY-495?
See, here's the thing.
Oh God.
As you get closer to New York City, it starts getting weirder. But then as you get into New York City, it stops mattering.
Yes.
Because nobody in New York City uses exit numbers anyway.
Or my favorite examples is you go to Long Island and you have the parkways which have lettered exits.
Exit W3W.
Or one of my favorite ones for the Sunken Mountain would be like
SM3B.
SM3.
Yeah.
SM3A.
RM2W.
SM3A.
Yeah, RM2W. So
Yep.
that's another weird quirk of the exit numbering
That
system in
I
New
think
York.
the thinking is they might keep the prefixes when they go.
Because there's so many different
Yeah,
highways in such
they,
close
they
quarters.
still have an argument for why that would be. That
Yeah.
might matter. And the Beth
Yeah.
page needs more B's.
Yeah.
Make it BB1.
Big beautiful one.
Oh, we're
So-
going back to Star Wars now. X.
Yes, exit BB8.
Yeah, the end of the north
Yeah.
end of the Beth page.
That's right. So we are looking at a slide that is different from the ones we've seen before. So we have ended the slideshow here, and we're transitioning into the next phase of my webinar, which usually comes with a video component. So I am going to make the hopefully not tragic decision of leaving up to the viewers what happens next in this presentation. So as you'll see what I've done here, I've broken up the eligible interstates for consideration
Oh,
into
boy.
4 divisions. Yeah, oh boy is right.
We're going to drive on interstate, make interstate face. That's what's going to win the poll.
Well, here's what's going to happen. So you've got the eligible interstates broken up into 4 divisions, right? It's up to you guys to vote, and I'll give you 2 minutes
To
to
us?
vote. No, as in the people in the
Aw.
chat. We will serve as tiebreakers if necessary.
Okay.
Vote 1 of each division, okay? So the columns run from top to bottom. And I have to explain this because, people are going to get it wrong and they'll be like, ooh, I thought it was one of the rows. No, it's one of the columns, okay? So you
Columns,
have
vertical.
your Buffalo area, your Rochester area, your Syracuse area, and your Albany area are broken out as follows, right? So each winner of each division gets an automatic bid into the video portion of the presentation. See, I'm channeling my college football.
I like the idea of
NFL.
calling it the Capital Group when one of them is actually in Kingston.
It's capital.
Well,
Yeah, it was a capital.
Old school
Exactly.
capital.
Exactly.
right?
It's
Yeah,
the
you
old
know.
capitals.
I would argue that Utica is not part of.
So
Schenectady is
please,
not part of the capital.
please take a moment. I'll give you 2 minutes to vote
Schenectady.
which interstates you want to see as automatic qualifiers in the video section of this presentation.
Instead of Ontario,
And
it should just say
your
Rochester.
your voting time begins now. What were you saying we should get into during the voting process? What were we talking about before? Like Josh sleeping with a prostitute under I-787? Like what were we talking about before?
I wish.
And Josh is a creeper.
Well, we can make this happen,
I want to see the I-687 video.
Well, you'd have to go to one of my YouTube channels to watch that, because I did do a video of the Corporate Woods Boulevard exit.
Oh. I tossed up the softball and he hit it.
Word.
Why don't I see 481 on this list?
Okay, we're having a couple people who are off track here already. So, again, divisions are from top to bottom on the page, right? So your Niagara division is 190, 290, 990, right? You can vote one of those.
Most of
okay?
these people-
You cannot vote for multiple of those. Okay?
No, I think
Or
so
your
far,
ballot is spoiled.
so far I think people have gotten it.
3 people have gotten it.
Yeah, after my
I
vote,
think 3 people are on the right track right now.
after my vote, I see NW, I Peters, and James Murphy all have voted correctly. I don't see any incorrect votes except Carlos.
Carlos and I Peters.
Carlos, yes, they're voting for columns.
They're voting for columns. They're not voting for one of each column. You see what I'm saying? So
You
have
can't
to vote.
Oh yeah, you can vote. But
My vote is an example. Okay, so like this vote doesn't officially count. So
Does my vote count?
No, because you're here in the living
But
room.
I'm also in chat. You said in chat.
I said that the people in the living room are the tiebreakers. They're not
Right.
part of the official vote.
Can I be both?
No.
I'm from New Jersey.
Only
My
if
vote
there's
doesn't
a
count twice.
only if there's a tie.
You're not from Chicago.
I am. No, I'm from Essex County, so it still works.
Okay. All right, so I think we understand how this works now, right? So the winner of the Central Division gets an automatic bid. The winner of the Ontario Division gets an automatic bid.
Is this gonna
The
be
winner of the Buffalo Bills gets fucked.
Is this going to be the top 4 face off, and then the winners of each of those?
No. So what's
We
happening
have to
here?
watch again a second time.
No, thank God. The 4 winning votes from each, the winning vote from each division gets watched. That's simple, right? I think we all can go along with that, right? So,
All right. So we still only, in that case, we still only have 3 people who voted properly.
I think we have what? Another 30 seconds to vote? Or did 2 minutes expire 2 minutes ago?
I'm pretty sure
Probably
we
about
went long for
So
yapping.
right now I've got 190, 490, 690, and then a 3-way split.
3-way. Like Skyline.
Although
Chevy.
since both you and I voted for 787, that could be the tiebreaker.
I see.
It's not
I
Dave, it's
no,
a
I
three-way.
oh. No, you're right. There's an 890, a 787,
And a 587.
and a 587. Okay.
The 587 video is not worth it.
Yeah, it's not.
Do not vote for that. That is really.
I'm gonna have to agree.
Operators
Please.
are standing by.
The get out of here as quickly as possible vote would be 990, 590,
Yeah.
790, 587. If you really hate us.
That would yeah.
The most interesting is probably 190,
490,
Probably
490,
690.
690.
Well, actually, so where does your 190
790
video
might
end?
also be interesting compared to 690.
Did you actually? I don't think you actually filmed all of 190.
Oh, I did. But here's the thing with 190. You can either watch. You know, if 190 is a winner, then we can either watch 5 minutes of it or 30 minutes of it. It depends. You know, it's not.
Jeepers
Yeah.
Cripes, little Friday.
South half is much better than the north half.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I'm just saying in
Is
terms
South
of just-
half maybe the most interesting 3DI upstate?
Did you drive past U.S. Customs with your camera running?
See, now I'm gonna have to play the whole 190 just to see what happens at the north end and what I did with that.
All right.
See.
So the voting is closed.
Play 190.
I think 890 won the Capital Division.
Barely.
We had a vote for 890 come in at the
Yes.
very end.
So
All right.
190, 490, 690, 890.
All right.
People hate the 87s and
Well, they hate 587,
787,
which
I
is a
think
good thing.
787 is way cooler than 890.
I do, but you know what? I value the opinion of the people who watch
I really
my.
don't. But
Well, yeah,
It's not your channel.
Yeah, it's not your
yeah.
channel,
So
bro.
go F yourself.
I don't value the opinion.
All right, so let's work backwards here. Let's start in the eastern part. So yeah, right. So we're gonna start with 890, which is
Damn, slow down.
downtown
The
Schenectady.
exit is only 35 miles an hour.
You're gonna overturn.
By the way, this gives you a terminal interchange exit 26 and Y8.
Yes, it was extends over to the
It's not signed.
890 is signed. It is signed
It's
very well.
and
it's
it was
it's signed once you're on it.
and it was style truck, but it's not a very. It's not a
I believe
So that explains why
right.
even though it's one of the least used interchangeable
the bridge on the left is Erie Canal Lock. So we're looking down.
Yeah, so on 890 eastbound, so on 890
It looks like a
eastbound,
bridge, but it's a dome. And this part basically used to 5S. Used to fives. Used to go into downtown. There's parts left. Oh, the
Yeah, this whole area.
It would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, you could take this and check it out. And this would have been. So you would have basically had to have a second. Other than.
I want to say one more. This would state exactly.
Another proposal for around it. I think that's around the time we they built that 88 that goes over. It kind of does. It goes over to 146.
That was actually the original that off on the right was the original interstate
So that explains kind of why there's some graffiti on the So before you know it, the 890 comes to an end just as quickly as it began. 'Cause that's how I roll.
Yeah, I was gonna.
I got on the west.
It's free.
Yep.
Is that right?
And if
Yes.
it's free,
You didn't
it's
know
for
this?
me.
No, I didn't know
Yes,
that.
And if it's free, it's for me. It's a Gaston County motto.
yes,
We're on 690.
That's a 25.
And I see where
So-
There's one other signature.
I
No?
see we're basically taking for the most part of the
Okay, so you have to go west 88.
yes,
Really? That's been in place forever.
it's been in place for at least, right, and the deal with
Well, there's the weekend I-6.
it's
kind of it ends basically where it crosses.
So this is I-690 east.
So it's not, this is not really actually.
John
Right.
rebuild.
That's my 100-mile-an-hour course.
That's natural more.
So we come to an interchange here. 'Cause This area
There wasn't what they were talking about.
I'm not a fan of
Why do you refuse to fulfill your destiny?
Because when I first set foot in Central New York, it was from all those
Alright, he made it to the 690
Now it's in your head.
So as you continue east, if I can go on a serious side.
I'm not talking water bingo football on the show this year. Reason for that? They're terrible. But Andy Young did something amazing yesterday. Amazing. And I'll be damned if I don't give him some love for it. Incredibly, Cincinnati was within a touchdown of Jacksonville in the fourth quarter.
We'll be able to go
in the
back
red zone. Looking to tie the game. Looking to shock the Jags. Unfortunately, Andy Dalton had other plans.
It's an interesting video that
Intercepted by Miles Jack. He's running it back at the 20. Still has the ball. Hands it backward to a teammate. Penalty flag down. That teammate running up the field. And he is tightroping the sideline before being pushed out. Very disappointed. Eagles radio through. All right, so look, that's not a great pass. But that'll happen. Especially Dalton. Actually, pretty quick.
I think that
But the Bengals defense is going to pick them up and force a punt. The Bengals offense comes back out. Incomplete pass. Defensive PI. Pass for no gain. And then this. It's got good people for either side. He's off the field in the fourth and rush. It's going to be a screen.
yeah, you see how
Jags defense. The old screen pass for the Jags defense. Just how they drew it up. That's why you bring in a young offensive stud to be a head coach. To dial up brilliant schemes like that. You know the old saying, right? You know sometimes when people say that dump off at the same time handoff, and screen pass with the same time handoff. That's when people say that. That screen was the same as a handoff. Like Dalton was just handing the ball to the opposition and letting them score. That was...
There are three types of concrete finishes that are generally used on freeways. Longitudinal grooving is in the direction of travel. It tends to be the quietest, but it has the potential to become slippery and wet. Lateral grooving has the best adhesion, but is the noisiest, which is what they started with back in the day. The other one that they'll do now is diamond grinding, which doesn't really have a pattern to it, and is sort of a compromise between traction and noise. That's sort of similar to where they started in the 30s and 40s, which was no grooving.
Holds them on toward the guys, focus in the red zone to stop
it kind of does, right? The overhead lighting. I voted for this one too. Our votes were not. I think 490 was the unanimous champion of the Yeah, so let me take a second to explain this. So, I did not film the entirety of the 490 is so I just covered the section from Yeah, because nobody wants to watch that. So here we are flying over the now into the old Rochester subway. We slightly isn't there like a remains of
Yes, that's the
right here on the right. I never noticed that.
and then over there you have horse statues. Yes, horse statues. This is floating around.
Oh! So this right of way was occupied by the Rochester subway until the 1950s, and then well, not all of it.
So they did widen this terminal.
So instead of it being 100 feet, maybe it was 50. So they just took it. It was that great. It's like Norfolk State Tunnel.
There's still the hybrid cars.
I'm talking about like
One thing with Rochester, the downtown Rochester, is something
yeah, so we're coming up to the you couldn't access the eastbound. So this interchange right here is the Genesee Expressway, 390, 490. You see on the right is the westbound interchange. We all cross the Genesee River together right here.
and then there's the bridge that is
That wasn't actually.
All the old interlink sites. Like the interchange ramps that So 5 8 p.m.
Now you can use it that way.
There's a town down there in the walls.
Did he say no?
Not seagulls.
Jiva. There's
But this is a correct So this is also the and this interchange is always volleyball is an intermediate.
Michigan was supposed to be
before we get to our Niagara Division winner, let's do a quick before and after drive.
Yes, let's. The great
interlude.
Yeah. Well, you see, I have made an executive decision, and the interloop gets an automatic bid over the automatic bids. So we're going to do a quick before and after because I did redocument.
The interloop is the SEC of this competition.
For the purposes of this presentation, yes. Now, I redocumented the interloop this past October with all the changes that have been made, but it's worth going back to my original documentation from 2010 before the freeway closed,
so that
we may have
centered cut, you say. Center's a football position. Indeed it is. It's almost as if football was created to make us grill. I'm telling you, there are larger forces at work here. Would that be gravity or stupidity? It's gotta be gravity. Grab the Kingsford charcoal on game day because football was made for grilling. Hey, Mike Golick here. You know, not all football is played on the field. Lots of it is played in cyberspace where it really gets interesting. College football fanatics, your game is ready. College Showdown brought to you by Kingsford, a new game that really puts you to the test. And you'll be rewarded for your skills big time. The grand prize is over $10,000 for the cool stuff for a backyard makeover. Weekly winners get Kingsford Grill Packs with tools and more. Get in the game. Go to ESPN.com. Working on the cars this weekend? Recycling. They'll have your parts ready in minutes, not hours. Why? Because their yard is inside. All cars are free dismantled in their 58,000 square foot warehouse. And what is it looking for you? Quick service and car parts are kept in the best possible condition, providing you with the quality you're looking for. Work directly with Brent Johnson, owner of ABL Recycling. Brent brings over 30 years of
knowledge in the auto salvage business. Go to avlrecycling.com today. AVL Recycling, your indoor auto salvage yard.
It is that time of year again when school is back in session and school buses are out in force. Please remember that the drivers are there to transport and protect our kids. Obey the flashing lights on the school buses for our kids' sake, and remember to drive safely. This public service announcement is brought to you by Kim Holtz Messina, a law firm providing legal solutions for the seriously injured. Visit KimHoltzLaw.com, KAMMHOLZ Law.com, or call 678-4500 today. Remember, there is no more precious cargo than our children.
Going green, sustainability. You've heard these words before, but as a business owner or business decision maker, you might not realize that profitability and environmental awareness can't be combined. In fact, that's exactly what the Gonzalo Institute for Sustainability at RIT is teaching its doctoral students. The PhD program at GIS is an exciting and unique initiative that takes applied research with sustainable business practices and uses it for real-world problem solving. Graduates of GIS are prepared to effect meaningful environmental change both locally and globally. They've already helped local partners like Xerox and Kodak become more sustainable, and they welcome the opportunity to assist you. There are a number of ways your company can collaborate with GIS and benefit from their expertise. If you're a business owner or business decision maker, you're invited to contact GIS to discuss the possibilities. 475-6872. The Gonzalo Institute for Sustainability at RIT, building a sustainable future through innovative technologies.
I'm Frank Kirchner, president of Top Friendly Markets.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
More ways to save every time you shop. You work hard for your money. At Top, we work hard to help you save it.
Tops puts more items on sale every week. Thousands of items. And only Tops are super coupons. It's all at Tops, your neighborhood store with more.
This week at Tops, you'll find more ways to save on delicious family meals.
It starts with our incredible beef roast sale. Your choice of tender and juicy USDA choice top round sirloin, ribeye round or bottom round roast. All just $2.99 a pound.
Stock up and save on a fruit variety of ladies' canned vegetables, just 50 cents a can.
Savor this sweet price on juicy jumbo cantaloupes, the perfect snack, 2 for only $4.
Don't miss this great deal on Lunchbox favorite Peter Pan peanut butter, a low $1.69.
And check out the Tops weekly ad for great super coupon savings during our big breakfast sale going on right now.
I would think that
Your neighborhood store needs more.
Election days is a huge swing that got me thinking. If there's a politician we don't like, we can boot them out of office in just 2 years. But you could be stuck with an old car you don't like forever. Hey, this is John Gabrielli from Ring of Mitsubishi. I think you should get a chance to swap your ride out every 2 years. So this month, I'm having a special congressional car swap event. Bring in any vehicle to Marina, regardless of condition, and I'll pay after trade no matter how much.
That'll be saved for the auxiliary tour.
Josh, we just said we don't want to know what your fetishes are.
Child size 878.
So you just saw the before, right? So here's what it looks like 9 years later. This is the expressway. So we're going to begin. You'll recognize the place that we're in now. Yes. So yeah, we're basically going to cross this bridge west now 3 times.
No, that would be it.
I did not take the question. So basically what leads up to the bridge and the change, what follows the bridge is the change. I started at a logical start.
No, that was different.
Whatever it might be. Yeah, you're going to see that up to a point it's the same as it has been. So expressway ends. That's interesting.
Left. That's what it's
Yeah.
There's no more inner loop straight ahead signage. Exit only to the left. Expressway ends. That's where there used to be an expressway, there's not a building. This escalated quickly.
I didn't realize you don't start building on
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep, this is the end of the limited access, so now we turn right on the Syracuse. Expressway
There's no
only.
right.
Yeah,
The old street was here before, so it's not the replacement.
I bike down the street.
the old expressway line is to the What's the Rochester Gauge?
That's a shared
Shared use path.
There is no bike lane. Yeah, you know me.
So in order to reconnect with the interloop, you have to take rides on this intersection. And they do a decent job of signing. Basically tied in again where the signal goes.
This is where you're getting started. So it was below here, and now it's
So that is a tour of the 2019 version of the interloop.
Boo!
Alright.
But it's still cool to see because I haven't been there since.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting to see what they did with the the redevelopment and the roundabout. Alright, now our last video will be Interstate.
And now we know that Johnny just had one of the guys that were players.
Interstate.
Secondary. And I'm not saying Josh Allen is going to light up the best player in the organization for this
Texas.
30 games. That's certainly not going well for a competitive game by any stretch of the imagination, does it?
Interstate
And I think you guys will understand this. Talked about the has played well, and I think that he's improving incrementally. Obviously, the Patriot game was not a good game, but I think for the most part that there's been improvement. But I also think it is an offense that is not necessarily a lighted up.
Only one of them is signed as
game on Friday saying, hey, we're going to win this game 35-10, no problem. Games are close. You always have to be a little careful.
That's an important distinction.
To dominate this game, but I still, it's felt that you're not in the fourth quarter. You know this. We've seen too many of these games where you're in Buffalo, and also in the fourth quarter, it's 13-10, you're on a nail biter.
One of the noteworthy things that's different.
We've seen this stuff a lot over the first 5 games this season. I mentioned this to Chris and to Steve earlier this week.
which one goes H2 doesn't go lower than 60. And H3, as I said, is 60. And I think that H3 is the I've looked into this and I believe it does. Like 7 technically it is. Yeah, there's a difference between the gate itself and it's like what we talked about. I had to go to the gas about it. Hey, I made a wrong turn. I made a right turn. And actually escort hand me back my ID. That is probably what I can do. Is the only legal
So I did CSTA was naked last so 6 days they didn't have that sort of
Yeah, no, I didn't have to have anybody in the car with me. The guy actually walked with me with my car around the U-turn and then handed me back my ID when I completed the U-turn. So, that is how I clinched Highway 92.
Salino and Barnesville.
Peace Bridge.
What year?
Which is otherwise known for areas
This exchange was relatively redone better. Not as much
Yeah, there are new ramps from the custom station. There's an expanded customs. Yeah, it's not nearly as antiquated as it used to be. Not in Buffalo. What I've always been interested in is the fact that 190 from here has always been they've never expanded it already. I mean, it's not like it's not like they could add a lot of capacity anyway, but I'm impressed that it's 4 lanes instead of what's up
the Giants are going to try to run the ball, and historically, I believe in the
Jack Eichel and Josh Allen.
Is a very intriguing player because of how he can be used.
Well, they lost the guy for
ESPN's NFL mention. Bring another game that is.
Why don't we turn on the
Colts were just determined in this.
Oh, he's fired!
Those people in front of
jackassing around with the left leg. Yes, you notice, and that's because, again, this is part of the New York State Thruway system. This is the Niagara section. Yeah, that's another part. They used to be done anymore.
Oh no, you're right.
Right. But there was always the prefix. Yeah. Just like the Berkshire Spur has been N16 and 17. Yeah, because the New England Thruway is part of the Thruway system, but it's completely disconnected from. Is 287 still in the Thruway? Is it still? Well, some of them. Those old ass signs at 16.
For more details, and also the foundation at Warriors on Twitter or
Yep, now the bridges are cashless toll. Toll plaza. This used to be a disaster. Well, considering the first bridge was built in 1935. Well, they're both built to the same spec, so it doesn't matter which bridge you're on. They're both. So we've now entered Brandon. Here's the new. Yeah, this is the gantry. This is the
And then we have this.
To add insult to injury, they charge you money to see that sign.
Of all the signs that have survived, that is one.
That was not there when I remember.
It's been there a long time.
It's not one time since it was.
It's been, yeah. It was there in 2006 when it first came. So it goes back to this thing. Yeah. And I think it's the only drag gantry on the freeway system that has that full. Yeah. So, whatever the hell. Really?
There are a lot of people. I think
So we're on. Oh yeah, that's that car dealership thing.
Jason, they should run a promotion with it.
You get $1 off. So we are in the midst of very grand island. Especially if you're on the island. Well, yeah, I mean, if the 890 had been built, a lot of this traffic wouldn't be on. And if they had built the Twin Cities Highway.
Growing up in Detroit, you didn't like hockey, I mean, that seemed to be the easiest city to like hockey. They were, for at least my entire life, they were amazing.
Send Nick a message. I know, Counselor Nick. I know he's got a busy schedule and all, but I'm sure he can make it.
It's not me.
No, he's some useless guy. Who gives a shit? Notice how the yellow banners at this exit are last exit on island, which is not something you see. Usually you're used to seeing last exit before toll, last exit before bridge. This says last exit on island. Take it. So, or do you want to continue a follow-up on this?
We've dwindled down to 17.
So this here, well, here's the other bridge that takes us from Great Island. I'm not telling you. You're going to find out. Interstate 384. It's interesting how they go to great lengths to use language. Have you witnessed that before? Really? Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's at this point that we lose throughway jurisdiction and rejoin DOT jurisdiction. And this is where the LaSalle Expressway splits off to the east, and as we mentioned before, this is one of the only pieces of the Outer Belt Expressway that was ever constructed. Yeah, if you look at aerial maps of it, it does the right of way. You can see, you can follow it right into downtown Niagara Falls. They did a lot of clearing from the west of it. Oh, 888, 888, 888.
You just monetize this video.
Yeah, right.
It is,
This is
the odds are we're going to see
Yeah, right.
a billboard, another
The first time I ever heard that commercial was so I should mention that we switched to DOT lanes at this point. Yes, but Niagara section. That section. Oh, you'll get excited in a second. immediately we cross the bridge. Here's the last exit, last U.S. exit.
I see the last exit incorrect.
You're gonna have to make me do that. I feel like it's last U.S. exit.
Oh, leaving New York.
So the last U.S. exit is the Niagara Scenic Parkway. And if you were to continue past this exit, you would reach the bridge.
They're not checking down enough, when in actuality they're one of the worst teams in the league. They're one of the teams that throws 30, 20 plus yards down the field. My guess would be then it's running back. Jordan Howard? I think it's Jordan Howard.
And
You just stopped filming there.
that was the last legal U-turn on the left there.
Oh, you turned. Okay.
Yeah. That's 190 in full.
You just didn't.
Well, it technically ends the border, but
Yeah, so you didn't film all of 190 because you didn't go to the middle of the bridge.
Because I couldn't go to there without going through customs. Right.
And
So-
you're legally not allowed to enter Canada.
You'd have to have
Wow.
a reason to justify it to see
Yeah. Like I can't. Yeah. Right. So.
You can't show up and say, I was just filming, I need to make a U-turn.
Oh yeah, that will go over great with the customs people. So I think we've reached the end of the line here. I think we're
feel that way
gonna.
often, Dan. There's help.
I think that we can wrap
I'd like
this
to plug
up
the
here.
national
I wonder how that
Line.
Army-Navy game went.
You want to Google that? Who won the Army-Navy game before we sign off?
After we sign off.
After we sign
No,
off?
before we sign
Yeah,
off.
let's do the same thing you just did with 190 and just end it right now without answering the question.
So this presentation went way longer than I thought it would, but I want to.
2 hours.
this went through. Hell yeah.
I want to thank everybody who appeared at my living room in person. This was a lot of fun to do with you guys, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Word.
And
Praise.
thank you to all of you who tuned into the live chat. It was great to see you guys. And
Special thanks to people who used apostrophes. Dying
Preposition.
art.
Special thanks to those of you who voted in the video section.
Oh yes,
this
all
evening.
3 of you. 3.5.
Hey,
I voted.
All votes matter.
we did not have to resort to the electoral college
sort of.
this evening, so that was a plus.
Or fisticuffs.
So
That'll happen later.
so with that,
I voted for 990.
With that, I think we're going to sign off.
1.5 hours.
And thank you very much for watching this comprehensive tour of the northern and western New York interstates from all of us here at Roadway Wiz and the AA Roads Forum.
And Gribble Nation.
Alps Roads, Gribble Nation. Check out those websites. They're great. They're awesome. And let's sign off. So thank you all for tuning in. And we'll catch you
You're
next
welcome.
time.
Glad you could have us.
Thank you, guys.
Angry emoji.
Angry.
Angry.
Let us eat cake.
Yeah.